bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Puppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything possible.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to another edition of Kicking with Kruse. My name is Ben Kruse. As always, I'm your co-host, and this is our first episode of 2024. Obviously, we've tried to do it for the last couple of days, and things just didn't work out, but glad that we're back. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for your constant great support in 2023, and I'm very, very excited for another full-on year with you guys as your host for this show specifically. And I want to thank also my co-hosts Isaiah Leon, James Gonzalez, some of my other fill-in hosts as well, Stephen Wayne, and some others for being part of the show in 2023. And I'm grateful, and I thank those guys for sure. And looking forward to definitely some more content for you guys throughout this year. It's going to be a great year, and no better way to obviously kind of get started to kick off than talk about a lot of stuff that has been going on throughout the end of this 2023 and the start of this year. Obviously we had the national championship yesterday. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's obviously a little bit of baseball stuff, not too much. It's been a very slow type of off season, to say the least, for sure. Obviously, NFL season is over. Yes, the regular season for the NFL is over. It was a very, very crazy season specifically, but you're obviously looking forward to the best time of year, and that's playoff season. We have our playoff teams. We have our playoff picture. We're going to go through the teams. We're going to go through the matchups. I don't know if we'll dig deep too much into the matchups, but we're definitely going to talk about who we have picking in terms of the wildcard rounds, which will begin this weekend. And then we'll talk a little basketball. Obviously, the NBA, obviously we haven't talked a lot recently about the NBA, but of course, the NBA season is about, I'd say, a quarter done. We're then I would say about a month until the NBA trade deadline, so that kind of gauges a lot of teams in terms of if teams are ready to focus on buying, if some teams are focused on ready to sell, if there's some teams that are kind of hoping to be right on that cusp line, some teams that are on play-ins, maybe want to add, some teams that maybe want to subtract. We'll talk all about that tonight, guys. I'm here with Kruse, and if you guys have any comments, feel free to comment. We'd love to answer that throughout the show. I do plan to have Isaiah Leon, my co-host, during the show for tonight. So we look forward to having him come on and obviously talk all this stuff here on Kicking with Kruse as usual for tonight. So the first order of business, though, is make sure to follow, like, comment, and subscribe if you guys like my shows and just any show in general on the IM6 MI6 Sports Network. We greatly appreciate it. Obviously, we're a growing type of network on the daily, and we really look forward to having another great year, giving you guys the best content out there possible, all the breaking news, all the great content that's recent, right on the fly. No better other way than, right to us, as we give you guys the best content on this network as possible. So make sure to follow, like, on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that jazz, as well as my specific socials. If you guys happen to ask me any questions, my Twitter is at Ben Kruse, all lowercase, 144 on Twitter. You guys can find me on there, on Facebook as well. I do have a Facebook as well. So you guys obviously can find me really outside of here on the network and different social media platforms as we gear up and have a great 2024. All right, let's get started, guys, with the national championship that was concluded. The bowl game specifically, the semifinals were absolute dandies. You had Alabama and you had Michigan, and then in the Sugar Bowl you had Texas and you had Washington. So let's quickly recap really quick the Alabama-Michigan game first. And the Michigan-Alabama game was really, really good. So he got to the lead first on a Jace McClanahan touchdown run. And then, it's kind of went back and forth. There really wasn't a lot of scoring specifically in this game. But the defenses really came up big. Jalen Milroe, J.J. McCarthy, both guys specifically didn't have to do much. McCarthy, I'd say, had to do a little bit more, especially when they were down a touchdown late in that game, as Alabama had a lead with about 3 minutes left, and he had to, find a way to tie this football game. Alabama was up 20-13 in that game. Will Reichert had a monster game. He had 2 field goals, including a 50-yard field goal. McCarthy hit Blake Corum. Obviously, was an absolute monster, for a lot of this playoffs specifically. And obviously, in that Rose Bowl game, he was fantastic as well. And so it was 20-13. And then right at the end, when it needed most, McCarthy hit Corum for a long game on 4th and 2 at their own zone. If he doesn't hit that, who knows if Michigan was going to be in the national championship, let alone be the national champions, as we'll get into, after this is over. But wow, McCarthy was able to find Roman Wilson with about 1 minute and 38 seconds left, tied the game up, and it went to overtime, which, of course, overtime rules in college is both teams get a chance to have possession, and Michigan got the ball first. They got the first score. Alabama had a chance. They were within the 5-yard mark, and Jalen Milroe, and I don't know what happened there with that play calling from Alabama, but it just blew up in their face. They tried to go for a QB draw, and Michigan had it all covered up, and that was that. Michigan was able to come back right at the end late and have a 27-20 win. They were the Rose Bowl champs, and they were waiting the winner of the next game. Which was Texas and Washington. Now, Texas-Washington, you had Michael Penix Jr., you had Quinn Ewers. Both teams obviously had a lot of great talent on both sides. You had Washington side, you had Penix Jr., you had Dylan Johnson, you had Romeo Donze, who was very, very good. A lot of their skill players were really good all year, specifically. Jalen McMillan, you name it. And you look at for Texas, you look at, they had Xavier Worthy. There's some other guys, though, that can actually ball out and make plays. So, a lot of this game, kind of like the Rose Bowl game, in this game specifically, the same kind of thing. Washington and Texas both had scores, made it 7-7 second quarter. It went 14-7. Dylan Johnson had 2 touchdowns. He had his first touchdown in the second quarter. Byron Murphy had a score to tie it. Penix hit Jalen Polk, made it 21-14. And then TJ Baxter from the end zone. So it was 21-21 all. The second half, Penix hit McMillan, and then they got a field goal. So it was 31-21. And then the fourth quarter is when it got really, really interesting. It was 34-21. So you're like, oh, this feels like it's a runaway. But then Ewers found Adonai Mitchell. So I made it 34-28. And then Washington got a field goal with about 2:44 left. Now, Washington essentially, so Texas got the ball, made it 37-31 because they got a field goal. And then I don't know what happened at the end for Washington and their coaching staff. I think it was 2 minutes left, and legitimately all they had to do was nail the ball. And they had multiple chances just to kneel it. They were trying to run out the clock, which I can definitely get, and essentially waste a lot of possession time that Texas has a chance to potentially come back and win. But they they really did not manage the clock good at all, and it really almost came back to bite them. And who knows if it was specifically the way that they managed that clock. If they didn't manage that clock properly, I don't know if they could ever recover with the way that happened. So they were up by 2 scores, in the fourth quarter, and almost moved on their face. But thankfully, it didn't. And another thing too, at the end was not only did they mismanage the clock, but the Dylan Johnson, the running back, got hurt. And so essentially, when they only had one timeout under a minute left, Texas essentially got a free timeout off of an injury. And then Washington end up punting the ball, and some guy on Washington, a special teamer, had a helmet to helmet personal foul penalty, which essentially kind of helped from not only it was going to be with on the inside the 20 arc on Texas side. Instead, it was almost to midfield, and who knows what happens. And it got really interesting at the end because let me see here. Yeah, they were at the 30. They were at Texas was at their own 30-yard mark with 45 seconds left. Yours had two incompletions, so it's third down, 38 seconds left. He had a 41-yard pass to Winnington, and then he had another big gain, two big back-to-back gains. And then they had 4 chances in Washington's end to potentially pull off a miraculous upset. And it was crazy enough, because both games specifically in the semifinals, as we have Isaiah come on here, came right down to the wire. And essentially, with the way the bowl games are pretty much all year, I was even telling when I was, down in Florida over Christmas and New Year's vacation watching these games, I'm like, all these games specifically were blowouts. They just had no juice to them. But then when I watched these 2 games specifically, my eyes were absolutely glued onto that TV. I mean, it was absolute classics of games. Essentially, they lived up to the hype. And Isaiah, as we have you now on here, what were your overall thoughts of these 2? As we obviously start with the college football segment, what do you feel about these 2 specific games? And of course, we'll recap the national championship, which concluded yesterday. But what do you think of these 2 games in terms of the way they finished? And just the way they kind of finished out, because those were absolutely classics of games.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Ben, Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to all of our. Yeah, we haven't done a show.
Is it too late to say it? I mean, because a lot of people were asking me, is it too late? When's a specific day that you're saying Happy New Year? And it's like, I don't know at this point in time, but Happy New Year, my friend, because we have not done a show. This is our first show of my show of the year, and I can't be more excited. So let's just say it, Happy New Year, my friend, and we'll keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Happy New Year to you and all of our viewers out there. Man, it feels like we haven't done this show in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. It seems like it's been a while since we.
Yeah, because I was on vacation, which was at least about a week, and then I don't know what happened, but we're back.
Right, we are back, and I hope you enjoyed Florida. I saw some of the pictures that you took. It looked really good. Yeah, I mean, those games like you mentioned, they were classics. I mean, I'm kind of bummed that I wasn't able to watch the whole game for both of them because I was working. I only got to see the second half, or no, the first half of Michigan and Alabama. Watched a little bit of the second half of Michigan and Alabama. I was actually working and just following it on my company issued iPad, the ending of it. And I was I think it was 3rd and goal. And I think Alabama was at the Michigan 3-yard or 2-yard line. And I thought they were going to score. I was like, there's no way with how physical Alabama is, with how dominant they are at the line of scrimmage, that they're not going to punch this in. And I thought that they were going to score. But then I saw that on 3rd and goal, they ran a run play, I think it was, and the running back got stuffed. And I was like, oh, crap, here's the game right here. 4th and goal. And then my iPad had a little bit of an internet glitch. So it took like about 5-10 minutes from 3rd and goal to 4th and goal to see what actually happened. And so I was kind of left in the dark on 4th and goal. I was like, what happened? What happened? Like, I have to know. And then it turned out, like, and I saw right then when it updated that Michigan stuffed Milrow, and I was just absolutely ecstatic because that meant Jim Harbaugh and Michigan had finally broke through. They finally won a big game, and they were going to the national title. And then the Washington and Texas game. I mean, I watched the second half of that game at home. I mean, it was a classic. It went down to the wire. Thank goodness that Washington won, Ben, because if they had lost, and you and I both know how football fans are just so diehard and they can do some despicable things when they're that diehard. If they had lost because Dylan Johnson, the running back, had gotten hurt with about 50 seconds left, that stopped the clock, that basically gave a free timeout to Texas, and that it gave Texas, like, I thought that Texas was going to have like 40 something seconds left. Oh no, they had 50 seconds left. Not only that, but they had 50 seconds left, clock stopped, and they had the ball at their own
Like their own 40,
yard line.
because they had a 15-yard penalty tacked on after the free timeout. So essentially, Washington was doing everything that they could to lose that game. I mean, that's essentially was the most mismanaged ending I've seen pretty much all bowl series.
Exactly. Like, Texas had the ball at the 30-something yard line after Washington gave them another 15 yards because the Washington cover guy could not not touch the receiver, and it was like a fair catch interference. So I thought Texas was going to win. Like, I thought, like, okay, with that high-powered offense with Ewers, they had just scored a touchdown the possession before. Like, I thought that, they were on a roll, and you give the team the ball at the 30. We're not talking about like the 19 or the 10-yard line. We're talking about the 30-yard line, needing to drive just 70 yards down the field, and you have 50 seconds left to do it. Like, that's eternity in football. So I thought Texas was going to win, and then when they completed that long pass, I was like, dude, Texas is going to win this game. Like, I'm going to feel so bad for that running back. But then, Quinn Ewers flat out choked. I mean, if he puts that ball, he doesn't throw it high. He puts it just right, line drive right to the chest of the Texas wide receiver. That's a touchdown, and they win that game. So Quinn Ewers, if he throws a better ball, they win. And but yeah, it was a great classic game. I'm so glad Washington won, because had they lost, Dylan Johnson would have been the most hated man in Seattle. Because you would have, you got hurt. But the thing is, football fans don't care if you get hurt, sadly. Like, they care about wins or losses. And, like, that's why I feel bad for a lot of these college players when they make mistakes, is because, like, these fan bases are going to get after you and rub you for your mistake. And if, like, if he gotten hurt, and that's what cost Washington a spot in the college football national title game, that would have been just absolutely horrible for Dylan Johnson. And everybody would have been talking about, if Dylan Johnson didn't get hurt, if Dylan Johnson, did not get hurt, Washington would have been in that game, because it would have ran another 30 seconds down, and Texas would have had the ball like at their own like 10-yard line with 20 seconds left. They wouldn't have done anything. But thank God Washington won, because for Dylan Johnson's sake, if they had lost, that guy would have gotten like a lot of hate in the world. And so I'm glad that didn't happen. But yeah, it was a classic. Both games classic. I thought McCarthy played outstanding in the second half. Like, that drive where they were down by 7, they had not done anything on offense in the second half, and McCarthy leads them down to the field. I think that was the best and biggest possession of the Jim Harbaugh era at Michigan. Because if they don't get that score right there, they lose to Alabama, and then everybody's going to say, oh, Jim Harbaugh lost another big game. He can't win big games, and it's going to be true. So that definitely saved Jim Harbaugh's legacy at Michigan. And Texas and Washington, Ewers, man, like you can't throw a lob in that situation. Like I know there was pressure, but the guy was open. Like if you throw a line drive, the cornerback doesn't have enough time to come across and just knock that down. But you put it high, and then he ended up knocking it down from the receiver. But just two absolute phenomenal games.
Well, despite the fact that Texas lost, I will want to give my flowers to Steve Sarkisian because my goodness, what a job that he did his year over with Texas. I mean, that team specifically, who knows if Quinn Ewers comes back. I know Xavier Worthy is going to be one of the top receivers in this draft, which is going to be a very deep receiving draft class. But they have Archie Manning coming up soon, which should be really, really exciting. So if Ewers does not come back, then they're going to have the Manning coming up, who potentially is going to play in that game because there was reports out that Ewers in the second half is a little bit banged up. Unfortunately, he was okay to finish it off, but yeah, so I still think Texas is going to be a really good program, and as long as Sarkisian is going to be there, I think that he is really going to help them a lot for sure. All right, now let's transition over to the game that happened last night. So now the two teams, you had Washington and you had Michigan. For the marbles, does Washington win or does Michigan essentially overcome adversity, of course, throughout the season in terms of potential cheating? Jim Harbaugh can't win it all. They obviously haven't won since I believe did they say 1963, Isaiah? Something like that. It's been correct me if I'm wrong because I don't think that's right by any means, but it's like I mentioned, it's been a long, long time since Michigan has won. But if you look at it, right, Georgia, it wasn't Georgia, it wasn't Alabama, it wasn't these teams that obviously been playing it recently. It was essentially two teams that essentially is like one of these teams is going to come out high that obviously hasn't won this in a long, long time. And so, without further ado, I'd like to congratulate the Michigan Wolverines, and obviously myself being an Ohio State fan, it's in my cap. Obviously they were the best team, all college football playoff. Of course, they beat Alabama. Obviously right at the end, McCarthy obviously had a very good drive, and I really do love Blake Corum. I mean, that guy is an absolute menace. You have the running back attack between Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. That Michigan offensive line essentially early on in this game as we transited over essentially was just absolutely grounding and pounding against that Washington front, and they had no answers. Massive gaps, early on that first quarter. Edwards has 2 touchdowns, and essentially it looked early often as in that game. However, Washington kind of settled in a little bit in that second quarter. Their defense started to kind of clog the box a little bit. But Michael Penix in this game last night, and I'm a big Penix guy, but I think that game last night kind of showed that he's a very good potential guy in this class, but I don't think he's going to be great because essentially look at a game like last night. Michigan's defense is probably the best defense in college football, and this was the biggest eye test for Michael Penix. And I don't think that he by any means, pass that test, but doesn't mean that he's going to not be a potential good quarterback in this class. Obviously he's had some injuries in the past, and I will say this, Isaiah, that he missed some balls in that first half. I mean, you remember, I think it was 14-3 Michigan. It was a 4th down, and he missed a wide open Romeo Donze. I mean, that could have been potentially not only for a long game to potentially get some points, but that could have been a potential touchdown, and he missed them there. He also missed some high point throws. I mean, obviously, and the end of the second quarter, I believe it was 14-10. They did get that touchdown, Washington at the end to McMillan, made it kind of a game. And then in that third quarter, both teams kind of went back and forth. Michigan's offense kind of really stalled a little bit, but that defense was really, really tough. I mean, the Washington offense just really was kicking themselves left and right. They had a lot of times where they were just beating themselves, false start penalties. Obviously, the interception that Penix had right when he was pressured in that second half. I think it was the first play in that second half where he had the interception. Now, they obviously only hold them to 3, but they obviously Washington kind of was the team that was shooting themselves in the foot a lot in that game. And then then they were down by, I think it was 27-13. I'm pretty sure. They got Corum had that touchdown, and then essentially they had a chance. Washington actually had a big long game. They were missing a lot of their big long chunk gains, unlike what Texas was doing, where Penix was able to kind of find the long deep ball accuracy, and he just didn't have that last night. McCarthy really didn't have to do a whole lot last night. It was really about that defense essentially holding Washington's passing attack, and their running game was able to do enough to make plays when they had to. And Washington essentially they did not make the plays at the end, and Michigan did when it was all said and done. And of course, Penix has that second interception. It was pretty much all said and done. They went for the killer shot, and Michigan Wolverines are your 2023-2024 national champions. Jim Harbaugh, obviously, and essentially potentially a year where he might be going to be potentially a coach in the NFL. He wins this all. Michigan essentially wins this for their team, their fan base. Of course, they're getting so much hate for a lot of this season, but I got to give her props to do. I tip my cap to those people, and congrats to them. Obviously, well deserved.
Yeah, definitely. First off, credit to Jim Harbaugh and Michigan. Congratulations to them. I was actually rooting for Michigan yesterday just because of Jim Harbaugh with his connection to the Niners. I wanted to see him finally break through and actually win a championship because Jim Harbaugh has always come close. He's always gotten to that championship game, but he's always choked it and he's never won it. And that was kind of his reputation, that he was kind of like Andy Reid. Andy Reid would always get to the Super Bowl. He would get to the NFC Championship game, but he would always choke when it mattered the most. So I kind of wanted Jim Harbaugh to finally break through and win a championship. And he finally did it. And I'm so proud of him. This was a moment that when he got hired at Michigan that I wanted to see happen, but I never thought it was going to happen because at that time, Michigan wasn't really like that championship powerhouse type program. Like they were all right, but they weren't like that championship powerhouse program. And then for years he couldn't beat Ohio State and he couldn't win the Big Ten, but he finally got over that hurdle. And then it was, he can't win in the playoffs, can't beat Georgia, can't beat any of the SEC teams. And then he finally did that, and now he's finally won the championship. So very happy for Jim Harbaugh, very happy for Michigan. Ben, I actually looked it up. It was Michigan has actually won a natty recently, but it was a co-share natty. I guess back in the 1990s and before, they were doing like co-champions. So they actually won it with Lloyd Carr and Tom Brady, but it was kind of like a co-share one. So this is their first national championship where they don't have to share with anybody for the first time, I think, since like 1962. So it's very, very impressive stuff. Very happy that they finally ended that championship drought. Let's start on Michigan's side. I think this game really, like you mentioned, it came down to Michigan's defense. Michigan's offense started off hot. They were just running it right down Washington's throat. Washington didn't have an answer for Michigan's rushing attack. But then Michigan's offense, like they did against Bama, they stalled. They stalled for a good portion of that second quarter and that second half. And I really thought that that's when the defense they said, okay, we're not going to let, even though our offense is not doing anything, we're not going to let Washington beat us. We're not going to let that happen. And they dominated the line of scrimmage. Those big guys up front dominated. The linebackers were great. The corners knocking down those passes and putting tight coverage on those star receivers. I thought the defense was just outstanding. And Jesse Minter, their defensive coordinator, he's been great all season long, and they've been dominant on defense all season long. He definitely is going to get a head coaching shot. Maybe next year, or maybe he even takes over Michigan's program after Harbaugh leaves. Who knows? But I mean, that defense was just ferocious all night long. They definitely won that game for the Michigan Wolverines. Like you mentioned, the first quarter was ugly. I don't know about you, but I thought it was gonna be like Georgia TCU 2.0. It was.
Yeah. I was looking that way for a little bit in that first quarter for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And I think I said this in the group chat that if Washington, if Michigan's defense can just get one or two stops, it's going to be over because they couldn't stop the rushing attack. Michigan was getting or was gashing them, like having 40, 50-yard massive runs, and it just seemed like Michigan could just score at will and do whatever they wanted. So credit to Washington's defense for actually settling down and actually being able to stop the Michigan rushing attack and make it a game. But McCarthy, feel like he wasn't really like all that good. There was times where some of the passes he was throwing was off to the receivers. It was either behind the receivers or it was to the right of the receivers when the guy was going left, or he just looked like he was out of sync in this game. And I think that even though he had a really good throw late that really I felt like clinched the championship for Michigan, which is, I don't know if you remember this, but he was rolling to his right, and then with a guy coming about to tackle him, he just fires a dart down to one of the
It was
receivers.
the tight end.
Yeah, the tight
Yeah, I
end.
remember that.
And that was like a 40-yard pass that really got them the momentum back, and I think ultimately got them the championship. But just credit to Harbaugh, credit to the defense, McCarthy for making the plays when he needs to. And then Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. I mean, the rushing attack. Edwards hasn't really been good this season, but he was really good in this championship game. Blake Corum was fantastic. 2 touchdowns late to seal the deal for Michigan. Just great job by Michigan. Offense, defense, special teams. Just outstanding job, and congratulations to them for winning the championship. And I think with Harbaugh now, I think Harbaugh is now, after this championship, I really think last night clinched his legacy as one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach to ever coach at Michigan, because Bo Schembechler was really good. He coached for like 20 years in Michigan, won a lot of bowl games, but he never won the championship. He never won the Natty. Like Lloyd Carr won the Natty, but you could say like, but it was a co-chair championship, so it didn't really, it means a lot, but it doesn't really mean as much as you holding the trophy by yourself. Harbaugh, not only did he play at Michigan, he starred there, but he also coached there, turns the program completely around. They've won 3 Big Ten championships. They've beaten Ohio State 3 times in a row, and now they just won the national title, and it's their own national title. And this Michigan team completely dominated from the start of the season to the end of the season. So I think that this puts him up there as the greatest Michigan head coach of all time. And great, just what a story, coming back to his alma mater, being that Michigan man. Like now he is truly the Michigan man with this championship. So congratulations to Harbaugh in Michigan. As far as Washington is concerned, like you mentioned, Washington just kept shooting themselves in the foot. They just kept really killing themselves. I mean, if Michael Penix makes that touchdown throw to that wide open receiver, I think it was Odunze late in the game, then I really think that Washington, that's going to be what, 7 or no, it would have been 14-10 at that time. Like, yeah, like it would have been a totally different ball game. Like I really thought that that miss really cost the Huskies the game. And Michael Penix was missing like wide receivers all night long. Or when he didn't miss the guys, Washington was committing like self-inflicted penalties, like that hold when they had that 30-yard bomb, the pick, which I thought really changed the momentum of the game because you were down just 17-10 going into halftime. You had the ball, you were driving. That really changed the game. And Ben, I'm gonna throw out a crazy take out here, and I know he just transferred there. I don't know the eligibility rules and stuff, but I honestly believe that had Will Rogers been put into the game last night, I really think Washington would have won because I just think it was an off night by Michael Penix. And Michael Penix, it wasn't just an off night, but he was hurt as well. So that's why he was missing guys high and left and right. And I think that Will Rogers would have hit Odunze for the touchdown. He would have hit some of those open receivers that Michael Penix missed in this game and really cost the Huskies the game. And I think the last point I'm going to make about the Huskies is this showed why that, they're going to have a tough transition into the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is about, physical play, line of
Yep.
scrimmage, dominance. In the Pac-12, it's all about finesse. It's all about, gimmick offenses that you don't really need the line of scrimmage, the offensive line and defensive line to be great in order for you to win football games, because the quarterbacks, the corners are not that good. The secondary is not that good. The defenses aren't that good. But when you actually play a team like Michigan, who's physical, defense is great, line of scrimmage is great, that's where you're going to have a hard time to win, because you just can't dominate the line of scrimmage because they're bigger and more physical than you. And I think that's where the Huskies sadly will have a harder transition into the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I agree with you in terms of Penix. I felt like he just was feeling really rushed, like rushed up. The offensive line just wasn't giving him that time in the pocket. And that's one thing about Penix was, and that he did really good against Texas was, there was times that he got pressured and he was able to get out of it. He was able to roll out and make plays. And this one, he was just not comfortable specifically consistently, where he wasn't was able to roll out a little bit, but the pocket was collapsing a lot earlier, and he just wasn't being, like I say, consistent again and rhythm all entire night. Now, really quickly, Isaiah, before we go over to NFL, is in terms of the four teams there, right? Because obviously the committee was talking about, do they get these teams right? And now we look back on this right now. Do you feel like those are the best four teams when it was all said and done that made it there, or do you think just they played obviously at the best at the right time at the end to deserve it? Because you look at Florida State, right? For example, they got absolutely blasted by Georgia in the Orange Bowl, and it's like, Florida State. You have Jordan Travis on Twitter. It's some of these players are just like reacting to these games, and they're just thinking like, we should have been there or something like that. It's like, no, it's like you essentially got blown out by Georgia, right? Obviously, Florida State didn't really have much of a quarterback, but Georgia, if there's any team, Georgia could have been back. And Kirby Smart and company, they could have been over, potentially, and represented one of those four teams. But now, Isaiah, sail on to all the four teams in the college football playoff, because now it's time for the 12-team playoff format. And now, that's my last question for you: is how do you feel like this format's going to go? And in terms of like the bowl games, do you feel like the bowl games are going to be a lot more less impactful, or do you feel like they're going to be a lot more impactful, given that the stakes are going to be a lot higher and there's just going to be a lot more teams involved?
Well, I think to your first question, sadly, I don't think Texas should have made it. I think that Georgia should have been there, and Alabama should have been there. And now you can also question, should Alabama had been there? Because like Georgia, I think should have definitely been in there, because they had played really well, not just this season, but last season and then the year before. And yeah, they had a bad game, and you're going to take away a playoff spot and end their back-to-back run. Just based on a bad game. Like, I didn't think that was fair. Georgia had been really good all season long. I mean, they dominated Florida. They dominated Ole Miss, which was a top 10 team in the country. And, they just looked, in that FSU game, they looked angry. Like, they looked like, man, the committee robbed us, and we're going to go out there and show them and, prove a point. And yeah, I think Georgia definitely should have made it. Um, I don't think the committee got it right, because I think that ultimately the four best teams in the country, if you go by the eye test, should have been Michigan, it should have been Washington, it should have been Alabama, and it should have been Georgia. I don't think Texas should have made it, because they were so close in a lot of their games, and they lost to a 3-loss Oklahoma team, who was getting into shootouts with everybody this entire season. So if you look at Georgia's loss and you compare it to Texas's loss, Texas, yeah, they beat Alabama. Georgia lost to Alabama, but Texas also lost to Oklahoma, which I think is a worse loss than Georgia's loss to Alabama. So I think it should have been Michigan, Washington, Georgia, and Alabama. That would have definitely been the four best teams in the country, and that would have definitely been an interesting playoff for sure. But honestly, I kind of enjoyed the playoffs. Like, it produced two classic games. Not going to complain about that. Michigan versus Washington was actually a game until like midway into the third quarter or fourth quarter, actually. So that was, pretty decent. But I think ultimately FSU, they made the right call. FSU, after Jordan Travis got hurt, you could just tell. Like, they weren't the same team. Their backup could not move the ball against Florida, and Florida's offense or defense is not that great. They couldn't even move the ball against Louisville. And Louisville lost to, I forgot who they lost to, but they got blasted in their game in their bowl game. So I don't think that was I think that was the right decision. As far as the 12-team playoff, Ben, it's going to open a world of craziness that we've never seen before. And I'm absolutely loving it because now you could see teams like Boise State, for example, or like some of these teams that you just never think of, Utah State, SMU, like some of these non-Power 5 teams, you could see them upsetting like some of these big dogs in like the playoffs, because remember, it's just one game, winner go home. And so let's say you have a bad game, you could lose that game, you could lose that game. So I think it's really going to be interesting. I can't wait for the 12-team playoff. I can't wait to see which teams get in. I think like the one versus the 12th is definitely going to be not a good game, because imagine Ben, you have Michigan versus Boise. Like, imagine you have Michigan versus Boise State. Like, who wants to see that? Like, I like Boise, but if it was on the blue turf, maybe Boise State has a chance. But against Michigan in Arbor, no way, no how. Boise State has a shot. So I think that the 12-team playoffs is going to be interesting, but it's going to be like the 2 versus 11, the 3 versus 10, the 4 versus 9, and so on. That's going to be the interesting one, especially as we go towards the middle. So I can't wait for it. And I think that it really opens up a lot of craziness, and also it really opens up more opportunities for some of these teams like Boise or New Mexico State, or some of these teams that get overlooked, to get some of these higher top recruits in college football.
Now we welcome here James Gonzalez into our program. James, it's been a hot minute since we've talked since. Happy New Year, belated, I guess, at this point in time, since it's now the 10th of January. Hope you're doing well. Obviously, James, we have been discussing really quickly the college football in terms of the national championship that happened last night, and then the Texas and Washington games, as well as the Rose Bowl. So first of all, James, how are you doing? And then if you want to get into your thoughts of those games, feel free.
I've been sick since before the New Year, I should say. So happy holidays to all your holidays. Ben, thank you. But yeah, it's just the weather. But I have no complaints, because where you are, it's probably single digit or teens, probably.
We're in like the 25 to low 30s at night. So
hey, take that. That's the way it is here right now, the lows. That's why I have this Mike Vrabel vest on right now. So that's why I'm wearing that.
Speaking of him, we'll talk about that situation later.
Yeah, that's interesting. For the college football, though, the semifinals were amazing. It makes me think, though, the Rose Bowl every year should be the national championship site, but they have it on a rotation, though. That's unfortunate. But man, Alabama just didn't have enough. Michigan just felt like the whole supreme team throughout, even without their coach for 6 games, 3 at the beginning, I think, and 3 at the end. It just felt like Michigan had it all. They had the passing, they had the rushing, and you saw that definitely yesterday. So that was easy. Yesterday's game was easy, but the game against Bama, that took some heart there, and then took some plays to make. Excuse me. The other game, Washington, Texas. I mean, credit Texas for giving Washington all they could. But like Washington, at least in that game, Penix Jr. had it going. Total opposite yesterday. But for that game, at least, Penix was awesome. It was unfortunate, though. Johnson got hurt in that game. And coming into this national championship game, you felt like Michigan had the game no matter what. And right away with those 2 runs by each running back there, the one touchdown run by each, you just felt like they were gonna win that game, and they would dominate, and they did. And you felt like Washington had no shot because Penix Jr. was just off. Me and Isaiah, I think, were texting and talking about it, but he was just off that game. It's unfortunate. It was the last game that he was off, but every other game, when he was playing against Oregon for the conference championship of the Pac-12, he was on. And then all the other games, not really the one of the last regular season games. I think it was the Apple Cup game. He wasn't as on, but throughout the year he was really good. But unfortunately, he picked, that game happened to be the last one. So that was unfortunate. But you felt like Michigan had it all, defensively, offensively, that they were going to rule the game, and they did that. So credit to Michigan being the champions, but also credit to Washington for sending the Pac-12 out. That's personal for me because that's the conference I grew up in. So at least they went out as a finalist. These two will meet next year, I believe in September, I want to say. But
George, yeah, I know Georgia, Alabama is gonna be in September. But yeah, they're gonna be playing each other next year, which should be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean JJ McCarthy, I think he'll stay in the. I don't think he's ready for the NFL. I honestly don't think he is, so I think he'll stay. But Penix Jr. will be gone. I've always said that I liked his talents. I like his throwing motion over the middle. And that's one thing you didn't see yesterday. They didn't throw over the middle. I think because Michigan had that sealed off. So they were trying fades down the corner. They were trying to lob it over, but Penix Jr. kept missing those receivers. But that's credit to Michigan's defense. So at least Washington went out well. I mean, they've been somewhere where they haven't gone in a while. And in Michigan winning it all, you just felt like they were the top spot all year long. They just had to wait for Georgia to fall and all the others. And just credit to Harbaugh for staying in there. Again, he's, keeping his, stance on the sign stealing stuff. He's keeping that stance, and you kind of want to believe him, but you still don't really know. But credit just to the players for not thinking about that all year long, and just pulling through whenever they needed it. I mean, they dominated all year long, so that's why they were undefeated. Duh.
All right, and like I mentioned, congrats to Michigan on winning the national championship. College football season will come to a close. Now, guys, let's transit over now to NFL, as that has not be coming to a close outside of regular season, which has come to a close. We really don't have to kind of recap a lot of Week 18 because obviously we want to talk about some of the firings because Black Monday just happened. So we want to talk about some of those that just occurred yesterday, and we'll start previewing the playoff picture, which will be coming. Hope you guys have your picks for Super Wild Card ready. If not, no worries, but we'll get into those. I know Isaiah off the air is excited about those. Let's get into the breaking news that happened today, though, and that's obviously that Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Tennessee Titans, has been fired, according to the team. This, guys, I think, was a little bit of a surprise. I'm not obviously going to lie to you and not think. I was actually at work, and I got that report essentially at the end of my shift, and I obviously had a little bit of mixed emotions because obviously this is a guy that, Bill Belichick, who right now still there's a lot of stuff going around in terms of what's going to happen there, in terms of if he stays, if he doesn't stay. But Mike Vrabel would be a perfect guy potentially because he, of course, has played the Patriots, and he could potentially be a fit, somewhere else. But Isaiah, obviously, if you want to get your overall thoughts, by all means, I heard some of that off the air. But James, I want to ask you, how do you feel about really quickly the Mike Vrabel firing? With Black Monday essentially coming with a lot of turnover with all these teams right now.
Well, just the Vrabel situation, it just feels like the Titans are really starting over. Remember, the new GM did not hire, of course, Vrabel, so it starts right there. And I think they just want to start with everything brand new, basically. That means Tannehill will be gone. Henry, of course, had a great last game.
Yeah,
I figure he's going to be, gone in free agency.
he will.
So there's just guys that are going to be there, and some will be, some won't be. They're gonna be bad for a while, but they're gonna try to build something up, maybe like the Lions have. Try to, have that model, I guess, of way to do things. But it's gonna be a long year now, long few years. Now for Mike Vrabel, man, I've heard so many possibilities today. Where he go to New England, and
Mhm.
if Belichick is gone, or he can go to another spot and be the head coach there, or go back to assisting or being a coordinator. You could tell though that he still loves the game. I think the Patriots would love to have him back, in a coaching way. For right now though, I don't know where he goes. I think it just depends on the Patriots and then the other spots that have coaching changes as well. So yeah, I was kind of shocked by it. I thought they were going to keep him around. I know the last 2 years they didn't make the playoffs, but the previous four they made the playoffs, and they were, even number one seeds in 2021. Uh, but they always had playoff failures. Either came down to not having enough talent. Well, when you trade your best receiver away for really nothing, uh, you're gonna fall. And then when you don't have your franchise quarterback for a while, that's also a bad thing. So it wasn't much on Vrabel. I think it was more on the tight ends, the general managers, their front office, and he just became a casualty of that.
All right, Isaiah. I obviously heard some of your stuff off the air about this, but how do you really feel about this? I mean, like I mentioned myself, I was very a little surprised, not surprised at the end, but I think just this kind of tells me right now that the Titans are going a full-on rebuild.
When I saw this morning, I woke up and I kind of let out a yell because I was like, I couldn't believe it. I know there was talk about Vrabel's future and it could happen, and he was going to meet with ownership, but Ian Rappaport was saying, he's going to meet with ownership, but the likelihood is that he's going to stay in Tennessee. But he was unhappy. But I thought that, okay, if they were going to get rid of him, they were going to trade him. I thought because Mike Vrabel is one of the better coaches in football, and he's a guy that I think that a lot of people, view highly in the NFL. And I think that for the Tennessee Titans not to even trade him and get something back in return, you could have gotten a first round pick in return for Mike Vrabel. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is like the Nuggets. If they were ever going to part ways with Mike Malone, not trading him and getting something back, like he's your top asset in your organization, and you're not even going to get something back from him, I think is just utterly ludicrous. But my other reaction was this Ben and James is absolutely 100% the perfect situation if you're a New England Patriots fan or if you're an Ohio State Buckeyes fan, because now you have the perfect replacement for Bill Belichick. Robert Kraft, like before, people were saying, oh, but who are you going to replace Belichick with? Is it going to be Gerard Mayo? Is it going to be someone else? Well, now you have Mike Vrabel out there, who's one of the top coaches in football, and you don't even have to trade for him. You don't even have to give up picks for him. You could just go out and get him, and it's a perfect situation. And also,
And
if
he's
you're the
played
Ohio,
there too, so he's
yeah,
familiar
yeah,
with the system.
exactly. He's a Hall of
Yep,
Famer too. He was inducted, I think, this past October.
yep,
So,
he was.
and yeah, and also if you're an Ohio State fan, I mean, you're out here looking like, okay, Michigan just won the national championship. They're the big brother program now. We used to be that program that Michigan is, that everybody, looked up to us, but now Michigan, or we're looking up to Michigan. Why is Ryan Day still here? Like, we can go out and get a premium coach, a guy that is well regarded as one of the better motivators in football and better, coaches in football. Why can't we go get Mike Vrabel? What if we offered him like 12 years, I don't know, like 150 million? Maybe he'll come. Like, who knows? Because that college money is actually bigger than the NFL. So this is like a great day if you're an Ohio State fan or if you're a Patriots fan, because, either he goes to the Patriots or he goes back to his alma mater, and you get a guy to replace Ryan Day in Mike Vrabel, who I think is a better coach than Ryan Day. And I think that, with Harbaugh leaving potentially, Mike Vrabel versus potentially Sharon Moore, I mean, that's a mismatch right there. So, this is a great day for these two organizations. I hope both of these two organizations make a call to Mike Vrabel, and I fully anticipate now with the Patriots, with Vrabel being available, I really think that the Patriots are now going to part ways with Bill Belichick, and I would not be surprised if they did it by tomorrow and we had some type of announcement. But as far as the Titans, I think I agree with both of you guys. Mike Vrabel, I don't know why they let him go. Makes no sense. But for the Titans, it just looks like they're going to undergo a rebuild now. They're going to get younger. Now there's questions. Is Will Levis the guy? Because reportedly Mike Vrabel wanted Levis in Tennessee, but Ryan Carton reportedly didn't. So is Will Levis the guy? You could have a change at quarterback, head coach, and a first or second year general manager. So Tennessee, they're definitely going to undergo a rebuild. Have to, because if you look at their division, you have Jacksonville there, even though they choked. Houston's on the come up. They just won the division. Indianapolis on the come up. The Tennessee Titans just feel like an old mid team that just need to start over. So they're definitely going to undergo a rebuild for sure.
And you saw the reaction from Derrick Henry after Vrabel got fired, and he was shocked. He really spoke highly about Mike Vrabel in terms of his tenure in Tennessee. And to me, that pretty much is like inevitable in terms of, Henry's had a great year there, great career, to be honest, there. But people were in New England were saying, imagine if Vrabel went and Henry went in a package to the Patriots. I mean, that would be absolutely crazy. But in terms of the other stuff on Black Monday, guys, what was some of your other reactions? Because, of course, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Of course, Bill Belichick. I'll ask James in terms of how he feels about that as well, too. Again, obviously, my reactions. But some other guys have already been fired. Ron Rivera, that's obviously he got fired. Arthur Smith has been fired. The Panthers essentially have cleaned house. They fired essentially Frank Reich. They fired their GM. They essentially have fired pretty much everybody on their staff. And Bobby Marks, who essentially was with the Golden State Warriors for a long period of time, he is now switching leagues. He's going to be over with the Commanders. He's going to be a front office role or something like that over there. The Commanders obviously are, they've been looking at different coordinators as we've been speaking now. The Giants have moved on from Wink Martindale. And just there's been a lot of just, a couple moves here and there. Obviously, there's been some interviews right now. So I'll go to both of you guys. What's been your overall thoughts on some of these other moves that have happened in the last couple of days? And what do you think there might be some other ones throughout the week? So I'll start with James.
Ooh, well, I'm never surprised by Tapper in Carolina. He likes to clean house. He's gone through, 5 head coaches, either intern or, regular head coaches the last couple of years now. So that's just going to be him. I'm also shocked a little bit by Jacksonville. It was almost like Doug Peterson saying, hey, it's not my fault. It's everybody else here. Fire everyone else. It's not me. But maybe it's partly his fault. The whole Wink Martindale thing, I know him and Dable has had beef now this season for a while, maybe into last year too. But it's amazing how these things go. Now, I'm not surprised by Arthur Smith. He just made too many dumb bonehead decisions late in games that cost them games. I think 5 games Smith cost Atlanta this year, and you'd be in the playoffs, no problem, if you won those games. Also, Ron Rivera, he should have been gone last year. I mean, there was a press conference, I think in week 15 or 16, where he didn't know that his team was eliminated by that loss. Right there, that showed like, hey, he shouldn't be coaching if he doesn't know the stakes. It was just time. He was there 1 2 year long. I thought Dennis Allen would get fired, but
Yeah.
I think maybe the way that they ended the season, but they still didn't make the playoffs. So I figured, okay, maybe their standards aren't high. They didn't think much of this season. That's all I could think of why they didn't make that decision. What else? Um, I know Robert Saleh. He has 1 more year. I know there are people saying he shouldn't be there, but I agree with the decision to keep him around. Other than that, I can't remember much else.
What do you think about Belichick?
Oh well, I told Isaiah this. I think a couple of weeks ago, or no, I'm sorry, after the game last week, or no, when was it? I forget. But I told him, I said, hey,
Sunday.
yeah, oh yeah, it was after the game. I said, I think it's gonna take 1 or 2 weeks to get a decision out of Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick because they have to meet together however many times. They have to meet together and say what they need to say. Obviously there's a little dysfunction because of the losing. I did like the press conference yesterday. What Belichick said, basically saying, "Hey, I would give up my, player management duties. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would give up those duties to still be a head coach. So I do like the direction that's going for him to stay. He's still great X's and O's and the coaching guy. He's still that guy. But when it comes to player personnel, he's kind of lost that touch. I think it happens to everybody. So I feel like he's gonna stay, but they're gonna hire a GM to really get this team back where it should be. They've had some free agent flops, some draft flops, and that just needs to be reversed for them to be respectable again. And I think having Belichick there would be still pretty awesome. So I think they're going to keep him around, but it's going to take into next week for that to happen. I feel bad though for Jared Mayo. I also feel bad for Vrabel, but I think for Mayo, it gives him another year of experience. I know the players love him. It could be an Antonio Pierce situation down the road where he's going to be next in line whenever Belichick does give it up. So I think it's just going to take a couple of weeks or in the next week for a decision to be made. And I think he's going to be retained.
And there's also reports going out, guys, from The Athletic from Jeff Howe saying that if Belichick stays, guess who might be coming back? No other than Josh McDaniels for another round. Yep. As an offensive coordinator. And there's a lot of fans online that are saying, why are we doing this? This is the same old stuff. Let's get some new blood out there. And we just don't know really in terms of what's going to happen. It's pretty much going to be, like you mentioned, James, I think it's going to come down a couple weeks because, remember what happened the stuff with Brady at the end too. They kind of they're kind of button heads at the end. They really just didn't know in terms of how to proceed. And I just don't know how they want to do with Belichick at all too. So I think right now, in terms of my decision, I think it's still TBD. If I had to make a decision right now, I'd probably say he's going to part ways. But I don't know, because until it's all said and done, you have no idea. So with that being the case, all right. But before we get into the playoff matchups for this weekend, I do want to get into the draft order, the 1 through 5, because that is now officially out there. Of course, my team is now in it. They're in the top 3. As orders, number 1 is going to be the Bears. Number 2 is going to be the Commanders. Number 3 is going to be the Patriots. Number 4 is going to be the Cardinals. And then number 5 is going to be the Giants, I think. I'm pretty sure. So if you guys essentially had like a little mock draft already, just for kicks, at least for me, I think at number 1, the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. I think at 2, the Commanders are going to take Drake May. I think at 3, the Patriots are going to take Jaden Daniels from LSU. And I think at 4, the Cardinals are going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. What about you guys?
You know, I think number one's the Bears. Yeah, number one's the Bears.
Mhm.
It really depends what they do with Field, and I think it's like
Yeah,
Belichick. They can take a couple of weeks or a couple of months to decide on that. You can get Caleb Williams, start over, or you could keep
yeah,
Justin Fields and add, a weapon for him. I think ultimately they traded just because I think Caleb Williams, I feel like with Fields, he's not that great of a passer, and you need a great
mm,
passer to win in the NFL. You can't be a subpar passer and expect to have success. So I think they take Caleb Williams. The Commanders, oh man, I think they take Drake May because they definitely need another quarterback for sure.
yeah.
Um,
Another thing
yeah,
too about Drake May, the reason why is Sam Howell and Drake May both played at the same school, so I think that there might be
right.
some connection there where he might be kind of a mentor. Howell might be a little bit of a mentor for him if he takes a backup role.
And then for the Patriots, it really depends because if it's
Mhm.
Belichick, remember the New England Patriots have 100+ million in salary cap space to
I
spend
can't
this
wait, man.
this
I'm so
offseason.
hyped.
Like they
They
have a
better use it.
lot. Yeah, they have a lot of cap space. Um, I could see them giving Kirk Cousins like a 2-year contract if it's Belichick coming back because he
Mhm.
knows he has to win this year, like or
I
has to
know.
win next year. So I could see that. But if it's Vrabel, then okay, Crap has given him the okay to start rebuilding and start building a young team. Then I could see the Patriots going and getting a receiver or a weapon. But
Marv?
regardless, I think that if I had to make a prediction right now, and Ben and James, you guys might call me crazy for this because I'm going to
Oh
hold
boy.
on to this fact. I think the New England Patriots draft Marvin Harrison Jr., Ben, from your Ohio State Buckeyes, and they pair him up with Bailey Zappi to be his quarterback.
Oh,
Hey, Zappi played well. You got to give him credit. He played well when he
oh.
actually started. And I've been saying this, and James knows this. I went on a huge rant last week when we did our show about, why Zappi should be the starter. James, I'm sorry you had to listen to that entire 12-minute rant about that.
Well,
But
I gotta see this then. I haven't seen it.
I said this. Zappi doesn't have weapons. If you give him
Mhm.
a number one and now in the NFL, you need 2 number ones to win. So if you give him like a couple of number one receivers, you upgrade the weapons, you upgrade the offensive line, maybe he can be a very serviceable quarterback. You can get maybe Marvin Harrison, and then maybe you can add like a Devontae Adams or a, Mike Evans in free agency with all that money that you have. Then you could see finally what you have in Zappi. Like Zappi played well with all of his weapons that he had, and let's face it, his weapons are probably the worst weapons in the NFL because he has a washed-up Ezekiel Elliott as his top weapon, and you can't really win with that. So I think they draft Harrison. I think they run it back with Zappi next year, and then number 4, Arizona. Oh man, I feel like Arizona. They have Kyler, so I don't think they're gonna be drafting a quarterback there.
Nope.
Um, I'm gonna, to be honest, I think they trade this pick, and I think they trade
Mm.
this pick. Get ready, guys, to James's Raiders, and James's Raiders draft Jaden Daniels and get their franchise quarterback
Ooh,
because the
nice.
Raiders need a quarterback. Or I can see JJ McCarthy if Harbaugh goes to the
Yeah,
Raiders.
not that high though.
Yeah, that is true. But
I
Jaden
think I
Daniels
think
is decent.
Penix is going to be higher in the draft than McCarthy would be this year. I do.
Yeah, and then
I think Penix is going to be a Raider. That's my pick.
who has the 5th pick? The Chargers.
No, I'm trying to remember. I think it's the Giants, but I'll just give me a sec. Um, Watch out for Joe Alt to be in the top 5 too, because Alt's going to be a really high. Oh, it's the Chargers. No, you're right, Isaiah. The Giants are 6th, so I do apologize about that. So maybe the
Yeah,
Chargers get Alt.
that's also the another thing is the Chargers. It depends on their coach. If they hire Harbaugh, I could see Harbaugh reaching for McCarthy because of their connection, right? And if they get Harbaugh or Belichick to be their head coach, they're gonna have all the power and the final say. So if it's Harbaugh, I could see McCarthy. But if it's Belichick, and that's the thing, Belichick is, man, you know him well from his drafts. You don't know what he's gonna pick. He doesn't go by what everybody says. So, if it's Harbaugh, I'm gonna go with the shocker and go with McCarthy. If it's Belichick, I'm gonna go with a defensive player because they need help on defense.
Okay. How about you, James? What do you think? If you had to make your own mock draft as of right now,
James, you're muted.
I think you're me and James.
I'm gonna shock the hell out of everybody right now.
I'm ready.
Chicago keeps their pick. They keep Justin Fields for another year.
Okay.
They draft Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay. I've seen that around. Yep.
I think they really need that playmaker. Their defense is set. They feel like Herbert can run the ball. You can find a running back later. But I think they get their playmaker that they really need. Okay, number 2 for Washington, I think it's Drake May, and the Giants, messed up the tank for. Oh no, you know what?
Going Caleb?
No. I think Washington gets Caleb Williams. I think they really want to make that splash and that mistake, and I think they get Caleb Williams. Because I watched him play, and it just seems like, man, he's in games, he's out of games, he does everything for the team, and it feels like he's going to have to continue to do that for Washington because they're not going to be good anytime soon. So I know. Okay, Caleb Williams number 2 to Washington. Number 3, Drake May goes to New England, and I think Zappe backs him up.
Okay.
Since Arizona doesn't need a quarterback, I think they're going to get Joe Alt, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame. I think they need more offensive line help, but they also need playmakers. They need just about everything, almost from linebackers, but they need a lot. Excuse me. The Chargers, I think they also go after offensive line help, and they'll get the junior from Penn State, Olumulu Iwal Fash Aniu. The offensive tackle 6'6", 317. I think those two flip-flops draft picks or mock drafts from CBS Sports, I think those two flip-flop and also flip-flop Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. from whatever CBS Sports has. I do these just based on need. So but man, I feel like you might see some trades up. You never know. If a team is so desperate, just like Carolina did with Chicago last year, you might see a team try to trade up and get Caleb Williams. They might think he's the number 1 pick. So I would be looking out for that. I wouldn't mind, like Isaiah mentioned with the Raiders, getting Michael Penix Jr. because eventually he said Daniels, but I wouldn't mind Penix Jr. One of those will be available after the Giants. I guess the Giants. You guys think they're going to draft a quarterback, either Daniels or Penix Jr. before?
Garofalo already mentioned that Daniel Jones is going to be their starter for next year.
Oh no.
Yep. So the Giants essentially are in that 5th-year option cap hell. They're in that hell right now, where they essentially they're screwed, and that's essentially the reason why the Patriots right now they have to move on from Mac Jones because specifically they're not going to pay that 5th-year option anyway. And if you can find somewhere else where you can succeed, which I hope for, the Patriots don't have to worry about that because now they have a chance to drop potentially their long-term answer at quarterback. James, it's actually pretty surprising that you did not pick Daniels potentially in your top 5 because there's been a lot of NFL. No, I mean it's obviously like you had a really good, interesting one that you mentioned, but there's been a lot of people that think Daniels has like the Caleb Williams, Drake May potential ceiling. And I'm obviously not saying it's going to be the case, but a lot of people draft evaluators right now think it.
That sounds like last year where all that hype was on Anthony Richardson out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden he made his way to the top 5, and it was good by the Colts, but it was so unexpected. So I know he won the Heisman, and that helps too. That's why I'm interested to see the combine, see the Wonderlic test, the other test where they grade on, situations. So I can't wait to see all that.
All right. And we'll talk more about this stuff as the draft goes on. We'll probably do a draft show on here too. That comes, so can't wait. All right, guys, the playoff picture, guys, is here. The regular season obviously is over. So let's talk about playoffs. Playoffs, as the guy, I forgot, remember his name in that commercial.
Herm Edwards.
Said it, but
Jim Moore.
Thank you. Appreciate it, James. But let's get it now into the games and the times. I mean, mostly all these teams from the AFC and NFC guys, pretty much deserve to be there. In the AFC, we have 2 games specifically. The first game is going to be on Saturday at 4:30. We got the Cleveland Browns taking on CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. This is going to be a really fascinating game. You have Joe Flacco, who really, guys, has been one of the biggest reasons why they're in the playoffs, which is crazy enough because he has really carried that Browns offense for the last couple of weeks. The Browns defense, obviously, all year has been really, really great. And then you look at the Texans, who have been, of course, the fun Cinderella type of young team. CJ Stroud obviously has had a fantastic year. They obviously won the game last week for the AFC South crown against the Indianapolis Colts. And D'Amico Ryans, Isaiah's old coach friend, he's been excellent there for his first year, and they 100% to be there. Now you look at the Dolphins and Chiefs game for the other Sunday night cap on Peacock. The Dolphins essentially lost that game to the Bills this past Sunday. It was a really good game to the end. But the Dolphins guys have a ton of injuries, especially defensively. They're going to be without potentially Van Ginkel. Bradley Chubb is obviously out for the year. Jalen Phillips is out. And you look at the Chiefs. Yeah, the Chiefs, of course, have had their problems the last couple of weeks, but the weather in Kansas City is going to be in the negatives pretty much, I think, at kickoff. I mean, it's not going to be pleasant for the Dolphins going into Arrowhead at all. But let's get into these 2 games, at least to start wildcard weekend. Isaiah, I'll go to you first. Who do you have for the Browns-Texans game?
Can you guys hear me? You guys can hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. My mic went out a little bit just now. For Browns and Texans, I'm going to go, I've been very impressed by CJ Stroud. Before I get into my prediction, I need to come on here and say that I was wrong about CJ Stroud. I thought that, he was going to be a bust. I think I made some comments before the draft where I said that he's going to continue the trend of Ohio State quarterbacks being a bust, and that
Steven, if you're listening, this is awesome to hear.
I know I was wrong about CJ Stroud. Listen, he's proved me wrong. He's definitely the Texas franchise quarterback, and some of the throws that he was making last Saturday against the Colts, I was just so impressed by. So congratulations to him on winning that division. Still can't believe the Jags flat out choked that.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that another time for sure.
Oh, that was awful. But for me, I'm gonna go with the Texans. They're at home. The crowd is gonna be buzzing. It's gonna be loud because it's the first playoff game in Houston since I think they beat James's Raiders and Connor Cook for that playoff game back in 2017. Yeah,
I remember that.
It's been a long time since they've had playoff football in Houston. It's been at least 6 years. So crowd's going to be into it. They're going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. And I like Joe Flacco, but I trust CJ Stroud more over Joe Flacco. CJ Stroud has that magic about him right now that is just hard to stop. And I think that the Browns will be able to move, or the Texans will be able to move the football somewhat against that Texans defense. But I think that ultimately CJ Stroud will be the guy that leads them down the field to kick a game-winning field goal to win a very low-scoring game. I think it's going to be two defenses going at it, but it's going to be a low-scoring game. But that CJ Stroud magic continues with a walk-off field goal to win it. And then the next game was what? Chiefs and Dolphins, right?
Dolphins and Chiefs. Yep.
Dolphins
Saturday
and
night.
Chiefs. I could see this going either way because, yeah, the Dolphins haven't played well outside of Miami, but Kansas City hasn't played well all season long, too. So I think that this game is going to come down to the wire. I think these both offenses, it's like you mentioned, Ben, it's going to be cold. It's going to be might be snowing. Who knows? But that's perfect for the Dolphins because the Dolphins offense is predicated on running the football with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Mostert didn't play last week against the Bills. He's going to be back this week against the Chiefs. I think that really helps the Dolphins out. Give me Miami to upset the defending champions on the road. I don't trust the Chiefs. They've been so inconsistent all season long. The receivers keep dropping passes left and right. Mahomes is frustrated. Kelsey has been double, triple teamed because the defenders know that like the receivers aren't going to do anything. So it's kind of like when Jared Vanderbilt shoots threes for the Lakers. It's like everybody leaves him open for a reason because he can't shoot. And they just defend everybody else. That's the thing with the Chiefs is everybody else defends. You pack it in, stop the run, double, triple team Kelsey, and let's see if guys like MVS and others can beat you, and they haven't shown they can all season long. So give me the Dolphins to upset the Chiefs. I'm going to go 24-20.
24-20. Okay. How about you, James? Who do you have in Browns Texans and then Dolphins Chiefs for the Saturday slate?
So I looked it up and I forgot the Texans made the playoffs in 19 and 20. So they beat the Bills January 4th of 2020. Yep. It was one of those opening wild card games. I think all their home playoff games have been the wild card game. The first wild card game, it seems like. They eventually lost to the Chiefs that year, I remembered. So for Cleveland and Houston, I think Myles Garrett's going to have an impact on this game. He's going to get after Stroud, like a strip sack or something. That's going to be the difference. I know CJ Stroud didn't play in the last matchup between these two. Flacco just aired it out to Njoku. I can't remember if Amari Cooper played. I don't think he did.
He did. He had 2 touchdowns.
He did. Yeah, that was that big game he had. Yep. So I think the Texans will at least stop some of that, but I think the Browns will score more. I think they'll make the lasting impact defensive play with the Browns. So I think the Browns will win that, but it'll be a really close game. For Miami, Kansas City, I can't go bold like Isaiah. I think Kansas City comes back. They do it on the ground more than they do it in the air with Pacheco. Miami's just banged up. More on the defensive side, of course. Van Ginkel, I think, will be out along with Chubb and Jalen Phillips. All those good players, other from Ramsey. I think Xavier Howard is also out as well. So they can really Miami's only chance is like, hey, Tyreek Hill played in that, stadium when it's been, 2 degrees like it's going to be or forecast it to be. That's going to be their only shot. And if Tua is getting rushed and sacked like we've seen, he's going to throw the bar early and he's going to throw picks like he did against Miami. I feel like the Kansas City defense is going to do too much to allow anything good to happen. Maybe 1 or 2 big plays by Miami with Tyreek Hill, but other from that, I don't see that happening all of the games. So I'm going to go with Kansas City.
So for me, I have obviously Browns Texans. It's going to be a really good one. You have the Browns obviously being a really good defensive team. They've been a good defensive team all year, but when the Texans played the Browns last time, they did not have CJ Stroud, and I think that's just a massive difference. Obviously CJ last week was very good. He's been playing really good football the last couple of weeks, and I think it's going to big, come down to some plays at the end, and I think that he really has a it factor, to me. And Joe Flacco obviously hasn't been playing playoff football in a long time, so you just don't know in terms of how he's going to be specifically. I know he's obviously played really well in the regular season, but I think that the Texans are going to make enough plays in this one to win at their home crowd on Saturday. And then I agree with you too, James. I think that Kansas City is going to win this one. Miami's just too banged up. And the Dolphins all year have not shown to me that they've been a good team against really good teams on the road. Obviously, you look at the game against the Ravens a couple weeks ago, they got absolutely blasted. They went to Buffalo. Obviously, the 2C now, they lost and they didn't play good at all. And now the Chiefs, the Chiefs obviously aren't the same team they once were, but you have to go there when it's like 0 degrees. Patrick Mahomes obviously has been in the playoffs time and time again, especially at home when he's played really well. It's really hard to go against him this one, but I think it's going to be close. Given where the stakes are, I think it's going to be for the Texans Browns game. We got 23-20. For the Chiefs game, we got 23-13. So those are my final scores in that. The Sunday games now, guys. There's 4 games on the slate. Well, actually 3. There's one Monday night game. So the first one we have Mason Rudolph and the Steelers. Who would have thought, guys, that the Steelers would have gotten in? The Jags obviously missing it, which opened up the chance for the Steelers to get in because the Steelers won against the Ravens with the Ravens backups. So they really needed help, and they got the help. They had what was it? The Bills also got in too, but the Jags obviously lost the Titans, so that obviously opened up the 2 other slots to get in, and that was the Steelers and the Bills. Mason Rudolph is going to take on the Bills at 1, and then you have the Packers at the Cowboys at 4:30. And then, guys, you had Matt Stafford's homecoming. Who would have guessed this? Who would have loved the NFL script, guys, to start off wildcard weekend where you have Matt Stafford and the Rams, who just clinched a playoff spot, I believe last week, going for him to go to his home place for the Lions' first playoff game in so long. I mean, he just could not, script that any better for sure. But I'll go to Eugene in terms of these 3 games for Sunday. Who do you have for these 3 games here with the Steelers, Bills, Packers, Cowboys, and then Rams, Lions?
Man, if only TJ Watt was playing, I think this game would have been better. A better chance for the Steelers. But
I didn't know that he's out.
Yeah, he's out. I just feel like he's the glue to the team, honestly. And
It gets out too, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
we saw last year how they did without him, and it just sucks. In that last game, he's got out. But everything that worked, last week, just little dump offs to the running backs. They're gonna have to do that. But I think Buffalo's, as depleted as they are defensively, they're gonna game plan for that. So I think Buffalo's. I think they're hitting their stride at the right time. They got their way in. They might be arguably the hottest team, or other from the Ravens. They might be the hottest team going into the playoffs. I would think.
I agree.
Buffalo, or the Browns. You throw them in there. But Buffalo just seems like they got their way back. So I'm gonna go Buffalo, and I know it won't be a blowout like last year in the regular season. I mean that was really bad. But also I'm thinking, man, Mitchell Trubisky, he's that bad that he can't do what Mason Rudolph did last week, where just little dump offs to the running backs to let them do their thing in the rain. That's pretty sad when you think about it. All right, so Green Bay and Dallas, I feel like the referees are going to have a handle in this game and give calls to the Cowboys. Also, I know. Who was it? The Packers had one guy who did pretty well last week, receiving wise, but they don't have
Jaden Reed, maybe.
Yeah, Reed. He had a bunch of yards.
He's been balling. Yep.
I think that's gonna. I think he'll get his because Gilmore's banged up. Of course, they're already without Diggs, but I feel like Green Bay isn't going to be able to block Parsons. He'll have a big sack or a defensive play. Credit to Love, though, for getting them in. It feels like the Steelers and the Packers are almost the same in that way. But Green Bay's been more efficient. So But in this game, I think Dallas just has too much. They have Pollard running well. They have what, 4 great receivers you can go throw the ball to, or all 4 can be great at one time. But credit to, man, I think the Packer defense will make it close, but I feel like there's going to be a couple of calls that give the Cowboys the game. It just feels like that. It was a chore just for Green Bay to make it, just like Pittsburgh. So I'm going to go Dallas. And then the last game on Sunday is the one I'm really looking forward to. I mean, you have Stafford going into Detroit as a Ram. You have the fans, some of the fans, Detroit fans, saying, hey, don't wear your Stafford jersey or you won't be allowed in. But it's just a tale of two teams that they've had really great years, really unexpected when you think about the LA Rams. I mean, they were supposed to win, 5 or 6 games, maybe even 4 that somebody had them. And with Puka Nacua doing great, Cooper Kupp doing well, Kyron Williams, that running back, they've been really good. Now, the problem is defensively, Detroit cannot stop the gains through the air, but they can stop the run. So it's going to be interesting to see how LA does through the air. And then for Detroit, losing Sam Laporta is tough in that last game. I mean, Iowa is just like tight end U. I mean, with all their tight ends they've came out with lately, they've been amazing with that. So I think Detroit gets it done. They have, Gibbs running well, but the run defense, they're sneaky good. They're young, but they're good. But I think the Lions sneak it out. It's going to be a really close game. Hopefully, because they're in a roof stadium, it's going to be a shootout. I would love a game like 31-28 Detroit, where it comes down to maybe a field goal. So I'm going to go with Detroit. I feel like the Rams, they've had a miracle season. Eventually it ends like this. But I can't wait for this game.
All right, Isaiah. What do you have for this Sunday slate of these three games?
So, you mentioned about Stafford going back to Detroit. This is actually reunion round because not only is Stafford going back to Detroit, remember, Goff is facing his former team in the LA Rams as well. So that's like kind of the two sides going at it. And the Goff versus McVay is another great storyline for that game because apparently when Goff left LA for Detroit, Goff and McVay had a lot of tension between those two, and they had a lot of bitterness between those two. So that's going to be some fun storylines to watch. But also, don't forget this: in the Dolphins-Chiefs game, you have Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City to face his former team, try to knock off his former team. And then in the Packers and Cowboys game, you have Mike McCarthy facing his former squad. Like, it's definitely the round of the reunions for sure. But going to the games, let's go to the Steelers and Bills game. I think this is going to be a blowout, like you guys mentioned. I don't think that Pittsburgh has a shot. Pittsburgh, their run defense their running game is not that good. I don't trust Mason Rudolph, those dump off passes, like they'll work against teams like the Ravens who were resting all their players, and in playing in the rain, but they're not going to work against the Buffalo Bills team who is very electric, and you have to beat them by throwing down the football field. So I think that Rudolph is in for a rude awakening. I think that that defensive line for the Bills, which is ferocious, is going to get after him, and it's going to be a long day for him. I think the Bills win this game. They're going to blow out the Steelers. I'm going to go Bills. I'm going to go Bills like 31-13. I don't really think this is going to be much of a game. Now to the good games, to the entrees. Cowboys and Packers, man. I'm looking forward to this one. I was talking to a friend today about this game. I was like, dude, the Packers have a great shot of upsetting the Dallas Cowboys because Dallas in the playoffs, they always seem to choke and underperform when the big lights come on. And the thing about this game is the Packers can score. Like, I'm not worried about their offense. can Dallas's defense stop the run? That's the bigger question because Green Bay likes to run the football. Dallas's defense has not been good against the run all season long, so expect a lot of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones out there. And now Aaron Jones is healthy, which is, he's a different monster when he's healthy. Jordan Love throwing the football down the field. I think that they'll be able, if they give him time, I think that he'll have a great day. But the bigger question is, can Green Bay's defense stop Dallas? And that's going to be the big question in this game. And I think we're going to have a shootout between Dallas and Green Bay. I don't think you really see much of a defense in this game. If it's close, I don't trust Mike McCarthy in a close game because he's gonna do something stupid and he's gonna end up choking the game for the Dallas Cowboys. So having said that, I'm going to go with the upset. Give me Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers to upset the Dallas Cowboys. I think that it's going to be a shootout, but I think that Mike McCarthy ultimately chokes it. And here's a bold prediction for you, James and Ben. And I'll put on my camera to say this. If Dallas loses, if they lose to the Packers in the wild card round, I could see Mike McCarthy getting fired, and I could see Bill Belichick going to Dallas to replace him. I really could because, Jerry likes the big names, and he knows this is my last shot to win it. And Dallas has a great defense. Imagine Micah Parsons in a Bill Belichick defense.
That'd be nasty. I can't.
Exactly. I don't think Bill Belichick has coached a lot of great players, but has he ever had a beast like Micah Parsons? That's gonna be.
Well, another thing too is when the Patriots obviously were drafting in the same class as Michael Parsons, I think the Patriots were really high on Michael Parsons. So it's almost like a full-on circle. If that ever happened, that makes a lot of sense, Isaiah. I mean, I really think that Jerry and Bill, low-key have a good connection.
Yeah, and Jerry has said he's respected Bill so much, and I think Jerry, when he's hired coaches, he's hired a lot of first timers, a lot of guys that don't deserve all the personnel power. But I mean, this is Bill Belichick. You're gonna give him all that personnel power. So I could see that happening. So I'm gonna go with the Packers, and then the Sunday night game. Oh my God, this is the game that I'm looking forward to. Same as James. Oh, I could see the Rams winning it. Not gonna lie, because Lions, like you mentioned, James. Their run defense is not that great. I could see a shootout, but it's Detroit's first playoff game at home. Crowd's going to be going crazy. Matthew Stafford's back in Detroit. I'm going to go with Detroit winning this game, but I could see LA winning it. But I'm going to go with Detroit. I'm going to go 35-31.
All right, for me, I'm going to go with the Bills here. It's 25 degrees. I do not trust whoever is quarterback for the Steelers to go in and pull off an upset in Buffalo. I just did not see that happening, especially TJ Watt and, Fitzpatrick are out. It's they really, to me, I think this is going to be the most lopsided game probably of the weekend. I'd be shocked if it's close. I really did. The Packers-Cowboys game, I definitely can really see in terms of Isaiah what you're mentioning. The Packers have been really playing well the last couple of weeks coming into the end of the season. Jordan Love obviously has been playing really well, but the Cowboys specifically at home all season, they're undefeated. They do not lose at home. Just something about being in Jerry World to them. Now they've had some problems at home in the playoffs, so that obviously does kind of concern me. But I'm going to lean with the Cowboys here. I just think that they have too much, skill players right now in terms of too much power, specifically the way that they've been playing. Dak Prescott, Pollard, even Brandon Cooks has been playing really well for them all season. So I'm going to go Dallas there. And then the Rams-Lions game, like you guys mentioned, that's really exciting. Laporta is not 100% healthy. Jared Goff, that's kind of been really his go-to guy for a while outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. If Gibbs, obviously, the Rams specifically kind of contain him, which I think that can happen. I'm going for the upset in this one. I'm going to take the Rams. I think that the Lions team is really young, and I think that they have a lot going for them. But something about Sean McVay in the playoffs, he usually does fairly well. And I think that Matt Stafford wants to spoil the party going back home. I think he's going to take the win in Detroit. I think it's going to be really close. I think for the Bills, Steelers game, I'm going to go 27-13 For the Cowboys-Packers game, I'm going to go 27-21. And then for the Rams-Lions game, I'm gonna go 24-17. Rams. So I think those are going to be my picks for those games. All right, guys. In the last game of the slate of the weekend, we have the Eagles and the Buccaneers. I want to first obviously ask you guys, what has happened to the Philadelphia Eagles? A team that essentially was 10-1 and they looked like the best team in football for so long. And Isaiah, this was a take that you did get right. In terms, you said that the Eagles all along were frauds. You said that they were going to be frauds, and you were proven right. And now obviously Matt Patricia going in there. I just don't understand why that was the case, because the defense specifically going in with them has been awful. Jalen Hurts has been inconsistent. He hasn't been 100% healthy. Devontae Smith got hurt against the Cardinals. He might be banged up. A.J. Brown might be banged up. Something's going on there with Philadelphia, and now people are saying is Nick Sirianni could potentially getting fired. I mean, that Philly fans right now are going ape shit, and that's the last thing that you need, especially for a team that looked like the perennial potential Super Bowl favorite for a lot of this season, and now they look like a team that potentially could be one and done. So it's pretty much how crazy much of the season can go through. But I'll go with you first, Isaiah, for the Eagles-Buccaneers game. Who do you have? Because this is a game where you would think that it would have been one side in terms of picking, but now at this point, it's like, I don't know.
Well, first, to answer your question, Ben, about what's going on with the Eagles, I don't think it's much of a surprise. I mean, I've thought they were frauds since the beginning of the season. The thing is, the eye test really determines a lot. And here's the thing with the Eagles: when they were 10-1, I didn't even think they should have been 10-1. I thought they should have been a team that should have been like at that point. I really thought the Philadelphia Eagles should have been like an 8-3 team. Like there were a couple of games that you were just like, how on earth did you win? Like against the Chiefs. If MBS, and I think we can all agree on this, if MBS does not drop that pass where it's right in his hands, he's wide open. If he doesn't drop that pass, they win that game. There's no way for the Eagles to come back. And he should have 1,000% caught that pass. Like how many receivers are there in the NFL? There's like 500 roughly. I guarantee you 498 of those receivers would have caught that pass. Like there's no excuses for you to drop that easy of a pass. And then the game against the Bills. I mean, the Bills shot themselves in the foot so many times. The Bills should have won that game by double digits. Like they gave that game away. So the Eagles should have lost those two games. I'm not surprised the downward spiral they've gone in. Their defense is horrific. Their offense. The thing is, when you put Jalen Hurts in the pocket, you keep him in the pocket no matter how much time the offensive line gives him. You stop the run. You keep a spy on him. Jalen Hurts is not that good of a passer. And when he has thrown the deep ball this season, it's been late. It's been underthrown. And the receivers have had to readjust to the ball. That was the same thing that happened last year. But the reason why everybody was like, oh, Jalen Hurts is so good, was because the receivers actually readjusted and they caught the football. But their defense was a lot better than it was last season, and they were running quarterback run, and everybody was enamored with their, the brotherly shove, and they were just scoring a bunch of points off of that. So, but now teams are taking that away. They're taking it away. They're putting a spy on Jalen Hurts. Receivers have gotten hurt. They're not catching the passes that they were catching last year. The defense has been awful this season. And I think that if Philly goes one and done in the playoffs, if they lose, like let's say 30-3, if they lose, they get blown out.
It was last week against the Giants.
Yeah,
they were pretty much blown out last week.
They were down 24-0 at halftime, and they had their starters in for that game. I mean, A.J. Brown was playing.
Decent amount, yeah.
Yeah, their entire offensive line was playing. Their defense, I mean, maybe they should have played their backups because their starters have just been so horrific this season. I think that going to this Buccaneers-Eagles game, Ben, you mentioned how everybody thought it was going to be a one-sided affair like a couple weeks ago. I still think it's going to be a one-sided affair, but I think it's going to be a one-sided affair for the Buccaneers. The Eagles look broken. They look like they're in shambles. Their defense, I mean, is so bad that, I mean, if you honestly put like a college football team like Ole Miss, Ole Miss would score points against the Eagles. Like they're a secondary. Every play you could see there's a bust. Their defensive line is giving a massive hose after massive hose after massive hose. Shaq Leonard on Sunday, when he was trying to cover Saquon Barkley, the guy looked like Angelina Ballerina out there. Like he looked like he was twisting and turning. It was like, what are you doing? He's falling on the field. So
I don't even remember that he was part of the team. That's how much I guess he's just been. He must be really washed.
Oh, he is. And also Zach Cunningham, too, who's their middle linebacker. He's been awful this entire season. I think that Baker Mayfield and the Bucks will put up a lot of points. Mike Evans. Imagine Mike Evans going up against that terrible secondary. He is going to go roughshod against them. And Chris Godwin as well. I don't think the Eagles defense can stop a lick. They're not going to be able to stop the Bucks offense. I think the Eagles offense puts up a little bit of a fight, but is A.J. Brown even playing, guys? Because remember, he almost tore his ACL against the Giants.
I think he's probably going to play, but I think he might not be 100%.
Yeah, and also Jalen Hurts has a messed up finger on his throwing hand. So that's going to also hurt things as well. So give me the Buccaneers. I think it's going to be a one-sided affair. Give me Buccaneers. I'm going to go 30-13.
All right, James, who do you have in this game between the Eagles and Bucks? A game that, by the way, is going to be a rematch from the regular season. James, I think you're muted.
All right, so I think that was week 2, and the Eagles looked way different than before.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I heard Isaiah mention like the Buccaneers and their passing game. I am kind of worried about the conditions. It's supposed to be 66 degrees, but rain. So that might affect a little bit of the passing game, but not enough because Mike Evans has been through that. Godwin's had a good year. Mayfield, as long as he doesn't try to do too much, I think he'll be successful. That Eagles secondary is awful. I mean, they tried putting Reddick on a receiver, the linebacker, and that didn't work out. And then the one game I'll remember Bradbury getting beat on was when he was put on a DK Metcalf, and Drew Lock just kept finding him on that, especially on that last drive. So I think the Bucks will exploit that. They'll get some timely stops. I hope some of those Bucks older defenders will be healthy enough to go. Because right now you can do anything to that Eagles offensive line, which is usually pretty good. But right now they're letting everybody in. The status about Brown is basically really nothing right now. I think we'll wait till Saturday, Sunday. It might be a game time decision, but you would expect him to try to go out there. But it's a knee injury, and I'm worried about the turf and the grass there. I should say. I don't know. That might be a bad equation there. Everything looks like it's going toward the Bucks to win this game. It might be a shocker to some, but it's just a feeling right now of the Eagles dropping like the Dolphins and the Bucks just hot at the right time. Granted, they did lose 2 weeks ago in which they were trying to win the division, but they had a bad game against the Saints. Now they're hoping to make up for that, especially here in the playoffs. I think they hosted the Monday night game last year, and the Cowboys beat them in the wild card game. That was Brady's last game. So yeah, I'm gonna go Tampa Bay. I just feel like they have enough to do it. And right now, the Eagles, they're just lost. I mean, their best player defensively, arguably, was probably Javion Carter, the rookie defensive tackle out of Georgia. I think he's been the only bright spot for them. He would have to have a monster game to remember for the Eagles to stay in it. And Hurts with that finger, I know he's going to be handing it off a lot or trying to run. Gainwell and Swift, they're going to have the game of their lives. I think that's what they're banking on because of the conditions. But I think Tampa Bay is going to pull it out.
All right, for me, like I mentioned, three of their main guys offensively. You have Jalen Hurts battling an injury. You have Devontae Smith, as Isaiah mentioned off the air. He's battling injury, and then AJ Brown's obviously battling injury. Another thing, too, guys, is Sidney Brown is going to be out for this game. He had an injury against the Giants, so it's like their defense is already depleted, and then you obviously lose a guy specifically that was actually not an awful cornerback for them. He's out, so it's like it's really tough because the Buccaneers have really kind of fallen the last couple of weeks offensively. Only scored 9 points against the Panthers, which is really concerning last week, and they scored only 13 points against the Saints two weekends ago. So it's like they're coming in offensively with not a lot. So maybe the Eagles are a jump type of team that maybe can get them going. But the Eagles have their own issues. So it's almost like this is a game that could be either really high scoring. This could be also a game that could be really, really low scoring. But I'm going to take the Eagles, and I'm taking the Eagles for one reason only. I'm taking their head coach I'm taking Sirianni over Todd Bowles. And I don't think many people like Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay. When I was at the game actually against the Saints, I had a lot of people saying fire Bowles in the stands. So they've obviously shown their displeasure over in Tampa Bay that they do not like Todd Bowles. And I don't know if I can trust Baker Mayfield specifically in the playoffs. If it was any other quarterback, I'd probably go with the specific quarterback over this Eagles team with the way it's just been that bad. But I'm going to take the Eagles. I think they're going to run the ball, do what they can, especially in those conditions. And I think it's going to be like 17-14. It could be even that. It could be that low scoring of a game because the Eagles have not shown me that they can be scoring a lot as of late, but the Buccaneers are just not scoring that much as of late too. So I think it could be a very low scoring game, defensive game specifically, not a lot of points, but I think it's going to come down to some coaching specifications at the end, and I'll take Nick Sirianni there. So, guys, those are your wild card predictions for this weekend. It's crazy to think the playoffs are here. I can't wait for in terms of what the matchups present to us. We'll do our division games next week. We'll talk, probably we'll see in terms of a show potentially before the weekend. I also do want to talk about some of the teams obviously after in terms of who potentially be some matchups to watch out for. So we'll obviously talk more about that. But I did obviously, before we conclude tonight's show, I do want to talk a little basketball with you guys. Because I know that you guys talked about some basketball on Sports Weekly last show. So I obviously want to talk a little bit of that before we conclude for tonight. Did you guys ever talk about the OG Anunoby trade for RJ Barrett on your show last show or no? Okay.
No, I don't think we did.
We'll start with that first then. What was your overall reactions about that trade? Because I remember seeing that trade, and I was like, wow. I mean, that was ballsy for the Knicks because Quickly's been a really good player for them. And Toronto, I think RJ Barrett really didn't want to leave the Knicks, but if there's any other team, I guess it was going to be Toronto. So that's a really good fit for them. And with the way that Pascal Siakam's been in trade discussions, and they've had some certain stuff going on there. That was a really good move for them. So obviously want to first start in our NBA segment about that. I'll first start with you, James, about how do you feel about that trade? And you look at the Knicks now, they've been undefeated ever since they've gotten OG Anunoby.
I think OG Anunoby, he brings a different dynamic game that Barrett couldn't. You couldn't trust Barrett. You did have to give up something to get something, and that's why Quickly was in that trade. That's one guy I thought the Knicks would hold on to in any trade. I thought he fit them pretty well, the energy. But OG Anunoby, you could tell he's taking command of his spot. I watched, I think, the first game he had, I think it was on Saturday against Minnesota, I believe, at the Garden, and he's been really good ever since. I mean that's been like you said, it was a risky trade, but it was one that had to shake up the team a bit. Where I think the Knicks fans, I don't know if it's true, maybe you can have a sense about it, but I think Knicks fans were always waiting for Barrett to maybe get to that next level of being a really great scorer, but either it was Brunson taking away the touches or Randall whenever he gets hot. But I think everybody was waiting for Barrett to be that guy, and he just hasn't been. But it's good that he goes home in a sense to Canada. I think he's going to love that. quickly, he might be a part of another trade. I don't know what's going to happen, but I really like that fit with OG and Newbie. It feels like the Knicks needed that small forward to get him going, or that shooting guard, whatever he may be. He could probably play a little bit of both. But I feel like that's what the Knicks needed. That one guy you can trust if Randall is off, which he's been mostly in the postseason. But if Jalen Brunson, is being doubled or he's having a bad shooting night, you can go to Anunoby, and he's sort of a triple threat. So I think that was a really good move by the Knicks. It was one that it was kind of a shocker because I was talking to my brother about it, and we were mentioning, man, the Knicks are really good with quickly, with his injury and all that. And then the next day, boom, the trade happens. So I'm going to shut up, because if I say another name, you might get traded. But I love that move for OG for the Knicks. I really do.
What about you, Isaiah? How do you feel about this move for the Raptors and Knicks sending OG Anunoby to the Knicks and the Raptors and Emmanuel quickly?
Well, before I get into that, James, you mentioned how you talked about a player and then he immediately got traded and you should shut up. Well, I hope talk more about Darvin Ham. Just talk more about how great he is, and then maybe he'll get shipped out of town. But in terms of this trade, I think it was a great trade for both sides, actually. I mean, we never really have these trades that are always like good for both sides. But I feel like this really addressed the needs for both of these two teams. I mean, RJ Barrett, I was shocked they traded him. Like when Woj announced the trade, I was like, what? You traded RJ Barrett for OG? OG's he's a good player, but remember back a couple off seasons ago, they were not willing to trade RJ Barrett for Kevin Durant, if you guys remember that.
Oh my God.
And and it was Kevin Durant and it was someone else for another superstar, right? It was they weren't willing to trade Kevin Durant, or they weren't willing to trade RJ Barrett for either Kevin Durant, or they weren't willing to trade RJ Barrett for
Damian?
Damian Lillard, yep, that was another one. And Donovan Mitchell. They held him out in that trade.
Mitchell, yeah.
And so you trade him for OG Anunoby. Like, it reminds me of when – and I'll go back to this situation. You guys remember when the Lakers in 2021 had an opportunity to get Kyle Lowry, who was a good player at that time, really good player, all-star player. And they refused when the Raptors were like, hey, we'll make this deal happen if you give up oh my God, I don't even remember his name. James or Ben, if you guys remember, what's that guard's name that played for the Lakers that was like a young player that time that everybody was like talking about, like, oh my God.
THT?
THT, exactly. And the Raptors were like, hey.
That's right. Yeah.
It's you and Miami. It's you and Miami. If Miami gives up Tyler Hero in that trade, Miami gets Kyle Lowry. If the Lakers give up THT, you get Kyle Lowry. If you can just give up THT and you can trade Kuzma and all the players you traded for Westbrook, you will get Kyle Lowry. And the Lakers were like, nope, we're not going to trade THT because we think, according to Rob Pelinka and sources, the Lakers viewed him as potentially the next superstar after LeBron James left the Lakers. And guess what?
Insane.
The Lakers traded THT 2 years or a year and a half later for freaking they traded him for Patrick Beverly. That's who they got for THT. So you're telling me you couldn't salvage the 2021 season by getting Kyle Lowry, who was playing at an all-star level at that time, and instead his value sunk so low, you ended up only getting Patrick freaking Beverly in return. Like, that's how pathetic it was. But back to the situation, it reminds me of that. Like, the Knicks were like, no, we're not going to trade him for Donovan Mitchell. We're not going to trade him for Kevin Durant. We're not going to trade him for Damian Lillard. And instead you get OG Anunoby in return. Like, he's a good player, but he's not that superstar. And it just tells you that these young players, you can't overvalue him. And you got to, make these moves right away that will land you superstars. But I think for the Knicks, Anunoby's a good player. I think, like James mentioned, definitely will help them. Will definitely give them some great guard play outside of Brunson, and Randall as well. Give him some scoring. And then for the Raptors, simple. It shakes it up. Raptors hadn't been playing good basketball. RJ Barrett, he's a better fit for them. I just think it's a win-win trade for both sides. And also, speaking of the Knicks, Dante DiVincenzo has been balling ever since he got inserted into the starting lineup. Yeah, he's been balling out. And, I mean, with Brunson, with DiVincenzo, that Villanova backcourt, with Anunoby now, and with Randall, I mean, the Knicks, they could be a force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
All right, guys. Now we're obviously going to some. Oh yeah, in terms of how I feel, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. It's a win-win. I think that OG really is going to be a good player for them. They've really needed that versatility for a while. And then for the Raptors, if they move on from Siakam, they at least have some other guys right now, like Barrett and Quickly, that I think are going to be multi-use scorers for that team over in Toronto. All right, now we obviously go to some tough news in terms out of Memphis. Ja Morant has officially been declared out for the season. This is obviously coming after he had the suspension to start their season, and then he comes back. He has the first game back he has is a game-winning play, I believe, in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And then Memphis was starting to kind of cruise a little bit. And then you just hear this news. I don't know how he got hurt specifically, but I just heard something on Twitter. It blew up, and Shams and Woj posted it, and I completely just was shattered, essentially reading this when I was watching the national championship yesterday. This is somebody that I know he's obviously had his off the court antics, understandably so, but this is a guy specifically that is a once-in-a-lifetime type talent. He is absolutely incredible to watch play. And it just sucks. It really sucks not only for Memphis, who's really starting to play a little bit better, and it sucks. Just absolutely sucks for basketball too. So, James, you were going to say something?
Yeah. So I found out this morning how he hurt himself. He was doing a workout, and he hurt it. I think it was the triceps or biceps, but his shooting arm, of course, it had to be, unfortunately. So he was just working out. And that's how he hurt it. So it was really basketball related. I heard that this morning, and that really hurt. I mean, I just want him. This is just another setback, but I just want him to be around the right people, be around the facility, be around the right people. It's not a good thing that he's not, playing, of course. But it's double that because of his, past history. And I just want him to rehab and get better for next year, and he'll have a whole new start for next season. Hopefully we can see the Grizzlies get back to the top of the West. But, man, it was just one of those things that happened, freak things that happened. It was just unfortunate that it was like it wasn't on the court. It was in the training or in the training room, basically. Yeah. Weight room.
That's crazy. That's crazy though. Isaiah, what do you think?
My reaction was, why does bad things have to happen to great players? It just it sucks, like you mentioned. I mean, the Grizzlies were starting to play good basketball after they got off to such a terrible start. They beat my Lakers by, I think it was 16. We did the watch party, and we thought like it was a good game, but then the Lakers ended up choking in the second half. They got blown out. Grizzlies, I mean, they shot the ball like they were the prime Golden State Warriors in that game. Ja Morant was outstanding in that game from three. And I think Doc Rivers said something on the broadcast that, Ja Morant, he's already a really good player, but he had added the 3-point shot to his game. He had worked on it during his suspension. He was actually shooting the ball, I think, like 41% from three, which was a career high. Like, he would have been an even better player than he already was. So for him to get hurt again, it just sucks. It sucks for the Grizzlies because they've been playing such great basketball. And, now, for the Grizzlies, they're going to have to start selling now, I think. You're going to have to start trading away some of those players on your team. I think that you look at potentially guys like I'm trying to check their roster right now. Potentially,
Jaren Jackson Jr.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
No.
I mean,
Titus
who knows?
Jones.
Yeah, Marcus
Bane.
Smart maybe is another guy you trade.
I think they like
keep
Bane a lot.
everybody. Yeah.
Steven Adams as a guy you could.
They could probably still make the playing team, but they could have potentially got out of the play-in possibly if Ja was playing. That's how good of a talent he is.
Exactly.
So that just sucks.
Yeah, they could have definitely got out of the play-in, and they could have gotten possibly to the second round for sure, depending on who they played. But yeah, I mean, Moran was playing great. Smart was playing good basketball. Brandon Clark, Biombo was all right. Xavier Tillman was good. Bane, now it's Desmond Bane's shot to show that he could potentially be like the top player in the NBA. So it sucks for the Grizzlies. It really does. And now you look at the Grizzlies roster, there's some attractive pieces on this team that I think a lot of teams could get after, especially a guy like Luke Kennard, who has done very well shooting the ball from three. I mean, any team could use 3-point snipers in today's NBA.
Didn't your Clippers have Luke Kennard, James? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he was traded last year. For I think it was a 3-team trade. He ended up on Memphis. What was unfortunate. He won a lot of games last year for the Clippers when Kawhi didn't want to play and Paul George got hurt. So he could be really valuable wherever he goes. Like Isaiah mentioned, 3-point shooters are easily valuable wherever you go. So if there's a contender out there that might need a little more shooting, throw in Denver even in that. He's really valuable. He can be.
All right, so obviously we go now to let's talk, guys, about our own teams because we haven't had the chance to in a while. And this will pretty much conclude probably for the remainder of tonight's show. Let's talk about really quickly, James, your Clippers. Since we've talked about the Clippers last time, James, they were kind of struggling. Obviously, it was kind of right when they got Harden. But I'll tell you what, man, they've been obviously cruising. They obviously blew it tonight, the Phoenix Suns, which, by the way, guys, you look at the Suns, the Warriors, and the Lakers. 3 teams essentially that theoretically probably going to be up in the top in terms of Western Conference, but they've been struggling a lot for the first couple months of this season. The Clippers right now, they're 23-13. They're the 4th seed. They're 7-3 in the last 10 games. And James, I mean, they've just been rolling right now. They've been finding ways, and then obviously we played you guys, I believe, in December. We had the first game against you.
Oh yeah.
But you guys have been playing well. So I'll first start with the first LA team here. And look up to Isaiah after the fact because it's probably not going to be as pleasant for you. But James, how do you feel about your Clippers right now?
I feel good. They've gone on winning streaks of 8 and 5 respectively, so that's always good. When the Clippers faced Boston, Kawhi got hurt the game before against 2 games before against Dallas, so that's why maybe Boston had their way. But man, they gave up 145 though. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if it'll matter.
Yeah, I remember working when that game was on, and once I found out the score in the second half or whatever, I was like, no, I'm good. But yeah, to beat the Suns twice and the wins in the new year, that feels pretty good. But it shows that the Suns, I don't know what it is, but they're almost like, it almost feels like the sun is setting. They're going to break up. It almost feels like that.
It feels like the Brooklyn 3 again.
Wherever KD goes, trouble goes. And, I figured that with James Harden, but I'll tell you what, Russell Westbrook, he's been amazing with this, where he did a real unselfish thing, where he said, I'll come off the bench. James Harden, he's his own system, right? So he has to do what he does. But at the beginning of this whole thing, Harden was not finding Zubac and others with assists. There was a lot of turnovers at first. They were trying to get him sorted into the Clipper rotation, into the starting lineup. And ever since that little turmoil, whatever, they've been awesome. James Harden has been, swishing and dishing, but he's been really good with his assists and his scoring. And Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, just given their averages, it's been really good. Zubac inside though, he's been so good. Tip back bench with the Plumlee injury. He's kind of taken over that backup center role, unfortunately for Plumlee. But Tice has been really good underneath on offensive rebounds, block shots. He's been really good with that, so that's been good to see. The upcoming schedule for these Clippers: Toronto, then they go to Memphis, they go to Minnesota, and then they host the Thunder. And later in the month, they host the Lakers. But I'm and then the 27th, another Saturday game against Boston. So that should be interesting. They go on a long road trip during that time. All the Eastern teams, basically, almost all the Eastern teams. So that's going to come up for that Grammy trip at Crypto.com arena. But right now, Clippers are playing with good harmony, so that's always good. You just hope to be healthy going into the break. The one bad spot about this team is PJ Tucker. He had a little fit.
Yeah.
And he's saying "Oh, I'm not fitting in well here." He's basically just sitting at the end of the bench. He's rarely talking to any coaches. He's just joking with some players, but he's not a factor at all. I thought he was going to come in and be a real defensive stopper, either coming off the. That's probably why he's pouting. There's too many small forwards on the team already starting and in the rotation. So he's just there, and I'm just wondering if they'll eventually cut him or trade him, or because he's James Harden's best friend, they'll probably just keep him around. But he's kind of an eyesore now to what he was before. He's kind of a waste of space, honestly. But other from that, everything else is going well for the Clippers, other from the loss against the Lakers on Sunday night, which I know Isaiah will talk about right now.
All right, now we'll go to the other team in LA, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers right now are 20. Hold on. Give me a sec, fellas. Lakers are 19-19. They did win tonight against Toronto. They are 500. They're the 10th seed, so they're right now actually half game back to the Suns for the 9th spot right now. But of course, Isaiah, we've talked off the air about this, that Darvin Ham and the Lakers right now currently have had a lot of tension. This team, essentially ever since the in-season tournament, things have not been consistent over there. LeBron James, even, he's had his really tough games as of late. You look at some of these players right now, and I don't know if it's in terms of just rest or just in terms of age. You look at Steph Curry. I know Steph Curry's obviously great and all, but he's even had his moments the last couple of games here. So I really don't know in terms of what's going on with those, but I'll take it, you Isaiah, right here. I'll take it away for your Lakers in terms of what should be next, because I know you have a lot to say.
First off, the Lakers, they had a really bad stretch after winning the in-season tournament. I think they lost 13 of 16 games or something like that. It was really, really bad. And I think, Ben, me and James talked about this last week when the report came out of Darvin Ham and the issues that he was having in the locker room. You could tell after the Miami game that it wasn't your typical, we just had a bad shooting night, we just had a bad game. No, you could tell body language was terrible. Guys weren't hustling. There was something else that was going on. And I immediately after the game, I think I said this in our group chat, that the Lakers players have quit on Darvin Ham. That there was something you could tell. Something was going on. They quit, that they didn't want to play for him anymore. And then the next day, the report comes out that Darvin Ham is having issues with the Lakers and that the Lakers could potentially fire him if they lose to the Grizzlies and the Clippers. And They lost to the Grizzlies. They got blown out. We did the watch party for that first half, and it was actually looking pretty good, but then they got blown out, and I was very disgusted with the Lakers. And then my disgust turned from the Lakers to another team, and that was the Los Angeles Clippers, because believe it or not, and it might be my fault that this happened, Ben and James, but on Sunday, I actually took one for the team, and I was rooting for the Clippers to beat my Lakers. I had never done this before, but I rooted for the Clippers to beat my Lakers because I thought, like,
Am I imagining things? What?
well, because
Go ahead.
if you're gonna fire Darvin Ham, you might as well do it now, because it just looked like the players quit, that they weren't interested in playing for him anymore. And I remember I was talking in the group chat, like, Doc Rivers, Juwan Howard is going to save the Lakers, and we'll see what happens. But, I mean, James's Clippers, I think they purposely played bad just to get Darvin Ham to be kept, because everybody in the NBA knows how bad of a coach he is. So, like, it was kind of like espionage in a way where, they want to, they're going to lose this game, but they're playing for the long haul. And so, like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't believe how bad Kawhi played, how bad the Clippers played with all the turnovers. Like, it was just absolutely unimaginable. And then tonight, I mean, the Lakers should have lost that game, if we're being honest. Like, the refs gave that game to the Lakers. There was a play where Scotty Barnes drives. They were down by 2, I think. They were down by 3. Scotty Barnes drives. He drives into the lane, and they were down by 4. Scotty Barnes drives down the lane. They need a bucket, and he dunks on Max Christie. And Max Christie, gave him a shove or an elbow. And it's like, how is that not a foul? That should have been an one foul, but that was not called. There was another play where they were down by 3. Toronto was down by 3, and RJ Barrett hits a 3, but it's called off because of a moving screen. But you could clearly see that the Laker player flopped to get the call. So Darko Rajakovic, the coach for the Raptors, he went off after the game. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was like the most entertaining and most the most crap that a coach has given a ref to the media all season long. He said this, guys. He said, "This is completely BS. This is a shame. Shame for the ref." He said this in a press conference. He's going to get fined a lot. Trust me on this. But he said this. He went off. He said, "This is complete BS. This is a shame. Shame on the referees. Shame for the NBA. The Lakers had to win tonight. If that's the case, let us know so we don't even show up for the game. Just give them the win."
Wow.
That was not fair to me. Why were you even going to show up? Like, he went off after this game. Like, he basically...
I got to see this then after this.
Yeah, he basically accused the league of corruption, and he accused the referees of just giving the Lakers the game. He's going to be fined a lot of money. Trust me on that. But, I mean, that referee, I feel bad for the Raptors. The Raptors should have beaten the Lakers. The Lakers got away with so many things in the end. But, hey, good win for the Lakers tonight. Maybe it's a start of something. Who knows? But, listen, Darvin Ham still needs to go, because I just don't see, like, after the report and the players' body language, how you can continue to keep them, because the players just seem like they quit on them. And also, the Lakers, they got to make a trade. They're just not good enough to compete with some of the top teams in the Western Conference. They don't have elite guard play. I mean, their top players right now in the perimeter is Austin Reeves, who I think is great, and Cam Reddish or Taurean Prince, who have been very inconsistent. I think the Lakers, what they got to do is they got to trade for either Zach LaVine, because it seems like the Bulls have nobody that want to get him. So it looks like the Lakers will be the only one. And here's a crazy idea, guys. The Lakers need to get Tyler Hero from the Miami Heat. I think that if they get either one of those two players, I think that would drastically improve the Lakers. And I think that you can't really judge the Lakers right now until after the trade deadline, because if they stick with this roster, well, then they're going to be done. But if they can get a Zach LaVine, get a third star, which is what they're missing, then I think that the Lakers will definitely be elevated into contenders. But right now, you look at the schedule. They have the Suns, who are reeling. At home on Thursday, they have the Jazz, who have not played well all season long, on Saturday. So I think those two could definitely be wins for sure. And then you move to the rest of the schedule. They have Oklahoma City at home, Mavericks at home.
Loss.
Yep,
Loss.
the Nets have
Sorry.
played the Blazers, the Clippers.
Yeah, that's a win for you guys. Yeah. Clippers, 50-50.
But it's in LA though. It's at the Clippers.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
That-
I mean, that's a toss up.
The Bulls play
same
the
spot.
Lakers. The Bulls play the Lakers on the 25th of January, so maybe, who knows, they can work out a trade there for Levine.
Ooh. Mhm.
Then you have Golden State in San Francisco. The Rockets in Houston, who have played very well. The Hawks, who have sucked all season long. And then February 1st, at Boston against your Boston Celtics, Ben.
Let's go.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. I still think Darvin Ham needs to go. I think that Zach LaVine needs to be a Laker. And watch out. If the Lakers, let me crazy guys, if the Lakers get Doc Rivers, I think that elevates them for sure, because you can't tell me Doc Rivers is a worse coach than Darvin Ham.
All right, and then for me, specific for the Celtics, they're right now number one still in the Eastern Conference. They're 28-8. They just lost last night against the Pacers, but they've obviously had a very good season so far. Missoula's had a really good year. I'll tell you guys, Kristaps Porzingis has been absolutely incredible. He's really helped become that dynamic third scorer. Jaylen Brown has really limited his turnovers this year, specifically. Bless you, James. I just have to say that this team right now, I think that Brad Stevens is going to explore some guys off the bench, because I do think that they need some help off the bench consistently. There are some little holes there off the bench, but right now, I mean, it's all going to come down to health of this team, because they essentially have a top 3 starting 5 in basketball, for sure. I mean, you look at, there's not many teams that could be able to match up with the Celtics starting 5 in terms of Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis. And you have Al Horford, and you have Sam Hauser. Obviously, can give you 3-point production off the bench. You have obviously Payne Pritchard. Guys essentially just been playing their roles left and right. So it's just been a team specifically right now. Obviously there's a lot of good teams in the East. The Bucks have obviously had a little bit of a spurt, but of course I still really fear them. The Sixers, I don't know specifically. They've obviously had their moments here and there. The Knicks, obviously, a very fair team. They obviously play us really tough every year. The Heat, of course, just signed Eric Spoelstra for a long-term contract extension, so that's not going to be fun for us for a while. But credit to them, they deserve it. The Pacers obviously been playing us tough all year, and the Cavs have been playing us tough all year. So it's not like, yeah, I do think that we're the best team in the Eastern Conference, but I do think there's just a lot of teams behind us still that are going to give us fits for sure. So, Isaiah, really quickly, before we conclude and get to our final thoughts, one guy for the Lakers I think that'd be a really good fit, who was actually a former Celtic, is Terry Rozier. I think that the Lakers getting Terry Rozier, he's a younger guy. You wouldn't have to probably cost the bank for him. He plays really good defense, and he could shoot the 3, and he could really be a good penetrator for that Lakers team. So I was thinking about that when you were talking about them. And next show, we will talk about some trade candidates in basketball, because I do have a list of them, and we'll talk about them next one, because I don't think that we're going to talk about it for the remainder of the show. But we do have quickly some comments before we conclude for tonight. And Seth Johnson Ford, he said, Isaiah, to your point about Raptors coach's comment, he also proclaimed Scotty Barnes as the future face of basketball.
To his point, when he wrote that, when I saw that comment pop through, I immediately got on my phone and went on Twitter to see if that was actually accurate. It is actually. If you guys can see it right here. So Darko said he went off on the refs, and then he said that right there, Scotty Barnes is gonna be an all-star. Right there, he's gonna be the face of this league. He actually said that. Wow. So yeah, Seth Johnson Ford is not trolling. He actually said that. I don't know. I mean, it is crazy.
He met the future face of basketball in Canada.
Yeah, I agree. And then he also said tonight. So
Have you guys ever seen a coach like go off and make those make the comments that Darko made tonight? I mean, he's definitely gonna get fined for sure for that.
I mean, I've seen
in the playoffs. I've
seen
seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen coaches obviously going rip crazy. I mean, I thought the stuff with Joe Mazzulla, of course, the ending of the Celtics Pacers game. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was Jaylen Brown got fouled. It looked like from Buddy Hield, who, by the way, apparently Buddy Hield after the game admitted that he fouled Jaylen Brown, and essentially Joe Mazzulla was like, "All right, watch out for the report from Basketball Today in terms of what's going to happen in terms of like the." I forgot what they call it. It's like the report that after the games and stuff like that. And then right before conclusion expired, Kristaps Porzingis apparently fouled Bennett McNamara or something his name is, and like he legitimately was like in his airspace, but still it was like right as time expired going to overtime, and all they had to do was hit a couple free throws and they won the game, which happened. So it's just the way it happened, just complete BS. And then I saw today that apparently that foul was not a foul, according to the NBA. And apparently that Miles Turner got away with the foul, with the screen or whatever. But it's what it is, So, Seth Johnson Ford, he said, "Who are some coaches on the hot seat?" As you're talking about basketball, I guess, but I don't know if you guys want to say it real quick before thoughts. Hot take, maybe Steve Kerr. I think that really the Warriors might have to start kind of going into a rebuild potentially. I mean, Klay Thompson might not be there long term. Draymond Green obviously he can't stay consistently on the court. Yeah, so maybe that's a really tough one. Maybe the Warriors, if they really want to conclude with like their dynasty, which I do think that it's really starting to kind of come apart as of late anyway.
Ben, I hate to interrupt you, but actually, fun fact: Steve Kerr is actually going to be a free agent after the season. He has 1 year left, and the Warriors have not extended him yet, which is a surprise because you typically don't see coaches like on the lame duck. So definitely, before James went, I was going to say Darvin Ham in LA. If they lose in like the first round of the play-in or don't even make the play-in. Steve Clifford in Charlotte because he's been just there.
Chauncey Billups, Portland.
Wes Unseld Jr. He's on the Wizards. He
would be happy about that though. He'd be happy about that.
Yeah. So guys, if you ever see this YouTube page, it's literally a YouTube page of this guy. I mean, I give him credit all the world, but he's legitimately like an Isaiah in terms of ripping defenses. Like every game, it's like a film review, and he just rips teams. It's absolutely hilarious. I'll send you guys the clips afterward. And he just literally did it with the Wizards game. He was going crazy about how this guy should be fired. It was absolutely hilarious. So I do think that he's probably going to be on the hot seat. You said Billy Donovan, Isaiah. I definitely can see that.
I honestly, and you guys might be shocked by this take. I wouldn't mind Billy Donovan in LA. I really think that, Billy Donovan coaching LeBron, I feel like he's coached KD, he's coached Harden, he's coached Westbrook before. Like, he can coach stars. So I think that he would be definitely a good coach in LA. Chicago would have let him go. He's not a good fit in Chicago, I feel like.
This is probably for you, James. Do you think Ty Lue could be fired if the Clippers bowed out early? No, I think that they have to coach. I think Ty Lue's done a really good job for them.
One more year. Because they would have Kawhi and Paul George for one more year.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's pretty much what we'll conclude for tonight's show of Kicking with Kruse 2024 first show. Good show, guys. There's obviously a lot we got into. Lots of stuff, obviously, and we're going to get obviously more throughout probably the end of the week. I'm going to be traveling this weekend. I'll actually be at the Celtics game on Saturday. So we'll have to see in terms of if we can do a show, possibly try to do it before Saturday, or maybe when I come back on Monday. We'll have to see about that. But good show, guys. I'll take it away to you guys. Start with you, James.
I have a solution for the Lakers. Make LeBron the GM. Make LeBron the GM, the head coach, player coach. Then just
I'll be like Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, you see what the Dodgers doing. He's essentially bringing guys in like crazy.
Yeah.
They have Otani with Yamamoto and Teoscar Hernandez. It's like, maybe like LeBron does that, bringing guys like Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and all these guys and make a,
I think that
all-star
would
team.
solve all the problems of the Lakers, and it would put all the heat on LeBron. I think it'd be cool because I know he's trying to get to be playing with his son. I don't know if that'll happen,
Mhm.
but I think it'd be cool if he became player coach like Bill Russell did and Lenny Wilkins did and or Bob Cousy did in Cincinnati. I think that'd be cool.
All right, Isaiah, take it away. With your final thoughts for tonight.
Yeah, good show tonight. It was great to be back kicking it with Kruse. Haven't done it in so long, so it was a fun show. A lot of stuff we went into. A lot of great sports action coming up soon. NFL playoffs is, this weekend. I mean, we've been looking forward to this for so long. Could potentially be an end of an era in New England. This week. So who knows? We'll keep up to date with that. If something breaks and Bill Belichick is let go, you guys know that we will immediately do a show that day to talk about it because it's going to be massive news for sure. And then, to Seth's point about baseball, I mean,
we'll talk about that next show too.
I think we're all wondering that. Like, it's so slow. Oh, it's awful.
Amanga, I know that got signed today from the Cubs. Yep. So obviously he was obviously somebody, and it's just been obviously it's been a slow type of thing. It's just been and like spring training is in like 5 to 6 weeks. It's really gonna come, and it's just like literally half the free agents are still like Blake Snell, Montgomery, all these guys are still out there, and I think it's one guy that's essentially doing that, Scott Boras. He's essentially a guy that's really hard for a lot of these guys, and like he makes it so tough. And it's like he's essentially, I think, potentially be the reason why. I'm not saying he's a full-on reason why, but he's one of them. So
it's definitely
great
made
show, guys. Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it.
Yep. It's definitely made the offseason just so disappointing in a way, because I think we all thought, like, okay, like this, after Otani signs, after Yamamoto signs, then you're going to have that mad rush, but we just haven't seen it yet, and it's been very disappointing. Hopefully they sign soon. Hopefully it doesn't drag out into February. I know the people in the Bay Area, like the Giant fans, who are pissed off at Farhan for not spending money and not signing anybody, so hopefully the Giants do something soon. And the last thing I'll say before Ben, I'll give the floor back to you and conclude the show is, how about my Kraken, man? What a great win tonight.
Okay.
5-2. I'm not really that familiar with hockey teams. I don't know. I don't remember who. Oh, they beat the Sabres. They beat the Sabres. They played really good hockey as of late. I think they're 17.
Well, maybe I have to talk to Taylor about you talking about the Kraken, I guess.
Yeah, I mean they're on the verge of making the playoffs, so hopefully they can get it done for sure.
All right. So Isaiah, obviously James had to go because of course his battery went out, but I appreciate James coming on. Isaiah, you appreciate you of course coming on. My two guys, of course, for tonight. And yeah, obviously, like I said, great show. And obviously a great first show to kick off 2024. Like I mentioned, guys, make sure to follow, like, comment, and subscribe to our MI6 stuff. If you guys like tonight's show, if you guys have liked the stuff in the past, I know Isaiah will probably start getting back up at the extra point. Of course, playoffs and stuff coming up. We'll probably have that. We'll probably batter up in all the watch parties and stuff like that. We'll continue to have that stuff throughout the next couple of weeks. So make sure to, of course, tune in for that stuff. In terms of my show, like I mentioned, maybe do a show on Friday or potentially Monday, because like I said, the 2 days after I'll be away, so I don't think that of course would be work enough for me, but we'll have to take a look about that. So of course keep you guys on the loop for that. So like I said, great show, and without further ado, Isaiah, this has been Kruse. We got Isaiah Leon here. Thank you guys for joining Kicking with Kruse. Have a great rest of your evening, and we'll bring you guys the outro.
Oh my God! The goal to go from the two. Toss sweep one for James White. Cuts it up to the right arm. Cuts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown. And a title for the Patriots. I can't believe it. Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. 45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Puppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything possible.